Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1518 of the War News stream. And tonight we have more big news out of the Middle East and out of Europe as well. We've seen tonight that the U.S. officials are now warning that an Iranian ship was allegedly carrying Chinese weapons on board. We have very little details, but that is a very big situation happening today. We've also seen that U.S. forces have boarded another Iran-linked ship today, and at this point, we're not sure how many they boarded, but it's apparently a lot. We've also seen that Iran has ordered evacuations in the Gulf states amid attack threats, and we have a lot of news, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 48 hours of news from around the world, as we have been able to hear of significant developments throughout the entirety of the globe, including the Middle East, the Indian Ocean, East Asia, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, and the Americas at large. Over the course of the past 48 hours, news has emerged that the Islamic Republic of Iran is now threatening imminent attacks against all Gulf state nations, the United States of America, and the State of Israel as well, making an open threat that multiple nations should evacuate all of their citizens immediately, and all sailors should hop on the nearest lifeboat and abandon ship within the Persian Gulf, as the Islamic Republic of Iran will be attempting here soon to try and strike and destroy everything within the region. Quite a significant amount of bluster, to say the least, but nevertheless showing that the Iranians are back on the warpath. The Iranians have additionally also claimed that they will not be talking to the United States of America's diplomatic delegation inside of Islamabad in talks that were supposed to be happening here soon. The Iranians have made it exceptionally clear at this point that they do not see talks being necessary any longer, and they will be trying to conduct militant actions here in the near future. On the other hand, the United States of America's president has announced that he is indefinitely extending the ceasefire with the Islamic Republic of Iran, which appears to have been unilaterally announced and has not sought the consent, or more so the approval, of the Islamic Republic of Iran, meaning that while the United States of America is now technically working off of an indefinite ceasefire window, the Islamic Republic of Iran Iran is seeing that its ceasefire that it agreed to is going to be lapsing most likely within the next several hours, or at least the next day. We have also seen that significant flights by the United States Air Force through the airbridge in Europe have continued, suggesting that currently U.S. war planners are forecasting that war will be an inevitable certainty within the region once more. We've also seen that the State of Israel's Air Force has been told that they need to get ready to work longer shifts. As we all understand, the Israeli armed forces do clock in and clock out like a usual job, and for that reason, they are telling them to get ready for overtime with no pay. The ambassador of the United States within Israel as well has also been recalled to Washington, D.C., which may be giving us a larger understanding that conflict is returning, and they're trying to move U.S. embassy staff in Israel out of the way of the incoming fire. We have also seen within the Strait of Hormuz and generally the Indian Ocean that the situation with the United States blockade has continued to grow, as the United States has seized other vessels, and the United States president is now alleging that one of these vessels that has been seized by the U.S. Armed Forces is apparently in possession of some sort of illegal contraband, possibly even weapons parts, that were provided by the People's Republic of China and was attempted to be smuggled into Iran on board the vessel. Currently, we do not have any further information or any further details rather than the allegation made by the president, and that is all we have to work off of at the moment. As the Iranians have made it clear that they will not be negotiating with the United States, and the United States is continuing its blockade against Iranian vessels attempting to enter or leave the Strait of Hormuz, the price of Brent crude has skyrocketed and has already surpassed $100 per barrel once again at this very moment in time. We have also heard that in the meantime, the United States of America is also trying to gather intel on one of China's new Liaoning-class aircraft carriers near to the area of the East China Sea. Additionally, news has emerged that the National Security Council, or more so, the United States of America's national security experts and members of the executive staff, are apparently meeting in the White House at this moment to discuss the situation in the Middle East and to figure out the next steps forward for the United States of America. Inside of the area of the U.S. Midwest, we have also heard that several E-4 Mercuries, or Doomsday aircraft, have been airborne and appear to be conducting training flights at this time as a part of the United States' ongoing nuclear readiness doctrine. Inside of Europe, we have also seen that due to the significant and worsening oil crisis, Lufthansa, a major air carrier from the Federal Republic of Germany, has announced that they will be canceling 20,000 flights here within the foreseeable future due to the lack of available fuel resources to make these flights an actual reality, showing that the fuel shortages are beginning to physically hit the European Union, and we did expect that one of the first industries that would be hit the hardest would most likely be civil aviation. We have also seen that several Russian aircraft, including a Tu-22 M3 backfire and also several Su-30s, were intercepted by the Swedish and the French today within the Baltic Sea as a part of ongoing NATO air defense exercises and also NATO air defense activities that are being conducted within the Baltic Sea. Meanwhile, Belarus threatened to nuke everyone within the region if they touch Belarus. I don't know what's going up with Lukashenko over the past 3 days, but Lukashenko is wilding out. He threatened that if anyone tries to attack Belarus, they will use the nuclear weapons that Belarus doesn't even have and technically aren't even in their possession to be able to defend their country. Moving us on out of that wild statement, we've also heard that the Ukrainian armed forces are still conducting massive drone attacks on the Russian Federation throughout the entirety of its central and southern regions, most of these targets being within the area of the southern military district of the Russian Federation. A key target that was hit today was the Samara pumping station, a part of a larger pipeline that provides fuel to the port of Tuapse, which is still ablazing and on fire at this moment. We have also heard that a significant military garrison of the Russian Federation in the Rostov Oblast was also hit and caused significant damage today. The Russian Federation has also announced for the 5th time in 4 years that they've taken the Luhansk Oblast. Additionally, we have also seen the Ukrainian armed forces have been inflicting significant casualties onto the Russian Federation's armed forces and have stopped most if not all advances today, with the Russian Federation's armed forces still largely stating through their military bloggers that it is perceived at the moment that the Ukrainians have the tactical advantage along most parts of the front line, and due to this reason, the Russian Federation is not seeing any sizable amounts of gains. As a matter of fact, they are currently seeing territorial losses throughout most of the area of the active front line. But with all of that in mind, we have a lot of news to cover tonight, as many of y'all can tell. Summaries usually aren't about 6 minutes long or 7 minutes long these days, usually, but as y'all can all see, things are starting to ramp up around the world. And we are going to start getting into all of this news, starting with our largest stories first, and then moving our way on down into the smaller stories throughout the night. to be honest with y'all, there is no small story tonight, so it's nothing but major stories. So, moving us on and into our first and largest story of the day, we have been able to hear of significant developments that have been happening between the United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran. It does appear that while the United States of America is still attempting to try and conduct some sort of a diplomatic play with the Islamic Republic of Iran and see that the kinetic war is brought to an end and the Strait of Hormuz is reopened without an additional shot being fired, the Iranians have made it incredibly clear that they are comfortable in their position of continuing their naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, and as a matter of fact, they would be comfortable, according to their public statements, of continuing the war throughout the entirety of the region. According to a statement that came out today from an Iranian official within the Islamic Republic of Iran, he stated the following. This specific individual is Syed Mohammed Marandi. Everyone should immediately leave the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait. Sailors on all ships in the Persian Gulf must also prepare to evacuate their ships. This is especially urgent for ships near the Strait of Hormuz, which will be destroyed first. Time is running out. Quite the doomsday warning, I would have to admit, and it certainly does appear that, at least right now, the Islamic Republic of Iran's government officials are beginning to message the words of war, and are starting to make it clear that they are going to be attempting to terrorize the region, including those stranded ships within the Gulf, and also all of our Gulf state allies, with inevitable and significant attacks possibly hitting critical infrastructure that would require the citizens of these nations to be able to flee. As many of y'all know, it is absolutely impossible in the modern day and age to be able to evacuate millions of people within a matter of just a couple of short days, or just over a day, much less the entirety of a sub-region like the Middle East. This claim is more so one to start iterating the sort of terrorism that the Islamic Republic of Iran is quite familiar with, and to sow seeds of fear within the public of the Gulf state nations, and possibly see that that fear starts to further leverage the governments of these Middle Eastern countries to try and put heavier pressure on the United States of America to adhere or to concede to Iranian demands, and see that the Islamic Republic of Iran might be able to try, through that diplomatic play, to put more pressure on the United States to meet the Islamic Republic of Iran's demands. We have also seen that at the same time, the Islamic Republic of Iran has started to make it incredibly clear that they are not going to be continuing to discuss any sort of peace deals with the United States of America. Word came out earlier today that the United States of America was apparently going to be extending the ceasefire indefinitely, according to the President of the United States. And this is the statement from the President's social media account, which largely stated this action. Statement of the President, Donald J. Trump. Based on the fact that the government of Iran is seriously fractured, not unexpectedly so, and upon the request of Field Marshal Azam Munir and Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif of Pakistan, we have been asked to hold our attack on the country of Iran until such time as their leaders and representatives can come up with a unified proposal. I have therefore directed our military to continue the blockade and, in all other respects, remain ready and able, and will therefore extend the ceasefire until such time as their proposal is submitted and discussions are concluded, one way or the other. It appears that at least
that sounds like the president's trying to feed into the idea that there might be some type of internal strife between the Iranian military and the Iranian government. Because notice at the beginning, he said that the government is severely fractured or seriously fractured, and they're not sure really who's in charge of the country. So we've heard reports, or at least rumors, that maybe there is currently a more extreme faction of the military that wants to keep fighting, and the Iranian government might want to negotiate. They may still be a little bit wild with their demands in negotiations, but they at least want to talk. So it seems to be, if you believe the president here, that he's suggesting that might be the case. So that's a bit interesting.
It is fairly interesting, but I would have to say that this statement is most likely not accurate as far as the internal government situation inside of Iran is concerned. To tell you all this for a minute, one of the main things that Imam Khomeini is applauded for within the Islamic regime, who is the Ayatollah who was killed at the very opening strikes that started this war, it was that he made sure that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps would be able to operate off of pre-planned orders, off of eventual circumstances or eventualities that may affect the Islamic Republic of Iran, until such time that a central government apparatus was able to be reformed and then start to bring the IRGC and the Iranian armed forces back under their control. So given that in mind, let's go over what we know right now in the public, the situation that we've seen so far, and what we've also seen up until today that would largely lead us to believe that the Iranian government has most likely been reformed to some operational extent. When Imam Khomeini, who was the original Ayatollah of the Islamic Republic of Iran, was killed in the opening strikes, and also a larger amount of top Iranian officials in that meeting were also killed, we would generally assume that most of the government apparatus, or at least the central command apparatus, of the Islamic Republic was most likely destroyed, meaning that from that point on, all of the attacks that followed by the IRGC and the Iranian armed forces were those that were conducted off of the centralized command structure, off of the eventuality planning that had been pioneered by Khamenei. With that in mind, we then saw that as the weeks continued to pass, the Islamic Republic of Iran started to see some sort of emerging command structure within their country. And the clearest indicator of that is that when the original 2-week ceasefire was agreed between the Iranian delegation and the U.S. delegation in Islamabad, which we're still in at this moment right now, all Iranian forces within the country, after the last bravura attack that we saw about 2 weeks ago, all stopped firing and have generally started to operate in a very centralized form since then. That is our best indication at the moment right now that the Iranian government does have some sort of centralized control in units, and the government are no longer acting in a decentralized form. As far as who is in control of that government, it's unclear, at least to us in the public. The Iranians claim that Mujtaba Khamenei, who is the son of Imam Khamenei, is now the Ayatollah and the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic. However, he could just be a figurehead and only the leader in name, and it may actually be commanded by lower officials within the inner circles of the Iranian government, which are the ones that are generally calling the shots right now. I would say that out of everyone that we've publicly seen so far that would definitely be involved in the decisions and actions of Iran at this moment, it is certainly clear that Abbas Araghchi, the foreign minister, is apparently at some sort of higher levels of discussion and involvement, as it appears that most of his statements, at least as how they have been made so far, have largely been law, and his statements heavily coincide or predicate the actions that the Iranian government takes before they even happen, meaning that Abbas Araghchi is certainly in communication with whoever is in charge of the central government apparatus that is now controlling the military and also most administrative actions inside of the country. This would also give us
It doesn't seem like Mujtaba is getting much respect, really, now that he's gotten his position. You really haven't seen him make any public appearances. He's hiding away, like, pretty much all the time, 24/7, he's hiding away. Nobody's really even sure where he's at. Like, I don't think he's made a single public appearance ever since he took charge, since his father got assassinated by the Israelis and the United States forces. I'm not really sure even where he's at. So, it's kind of hard to lead when you're not even visible. That's kind of a hard thing to do, especially being a new and unproven leader.
It really is. I would actually have to be honest with you. I think that he's still incapacitated at this point, like they originally stated, because from what we've heard, folks, Mujtaba was nearby to the initial attacks that killed Imam Khamenei, who was the former supreme leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and from what we've been able to gather, he was injured significantly in that attack, and apparently has had to have a leg amputated, and possibly some other additional emergency surgeries conducted to be able to stabilize his condition. If that information is true, he may actually still be in some level of traction or recovery at this moment, and therefore may not be accessible to be able to actually run the country, or much less for that matter be visible. That would also lead us to believe that once again, Mujtaba Khamenei is not in charge of the Iranian government, but there is definitely some sort of a centralized group that is commanding the Iranian armed forces and is operating as the de facto government inside of Iran right now. With all of this in mind, however, the fact that we're saying that it does appear clear off of our indicators that there certainly is a operational government that has taken charge in Iran, we just don't know who the exact faces and names of that group is, and we've also seen that the Iranians are now threatening another warlike footing, threatening that everyone needs to flee the region because they're about to destroy everything, and in the midst of the United States also extending the ceasefire indefinitely on their own without any request or approval by the Iranians for an additional addendum to the current ceasefire. A lot of people are currently putting in their opinions right now on what's going to be happening soon between the United States and Iran. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that right now, and what are you thinking about that as well?
All right. So if you've been trying to keep up with us today, it's really hard to actually keep up with what's going on. But here's basically what's been happening so far. The Iranians are not wanting to talk. They have rejected showing up to any peace talks, and the U.S. is trying to set them up, I believe, for tomorrow. But the Iranians have outright rejected to even show up, and they're accusing the United States of trying to set up a ruse so that way the U.S. can attack their country while they're trying to show up to peace talks. So that's part number one right there. Now Iran is saying that their missiles are ready to fire, and they're warning people to evacuate the Gulf states, and they're also holding like events inside of Tehran, showing that they're going to try to target the oil infrastructure inside the Gulf states yet again. And in the meantime, the U.S. said, let's give Iran a pretty much unsolicited extension of the ceasefire for pretty much no reason. Let's just give them an extension in the midst of all that happening. So it's a little bit hard to follow. It's kind of a wild series of events happening right now. But what do you think, though, about the threats Iran's making and where we stand right now? So 41% said Iran plans to attack the U.S. forces very soon, while 31% said Iran is simply trying to pressure the United States into talking, and 24% said it seems like the usual yapping, and there's not much more out of it than that. And I would say that both sides are about to attack each other. I personally don't think that this United States talking routine they're trying to do right now, I don't think they actually intend to do that. I think the U.S. is planning on pretty much going in and hammering the hell out of Iran again, and they're simply using these talks as a way to stall for time, basically, while more forces arrive in the region. So I'm with the 41%. I think Iran plans to attack soon, and also I think the U.S. is ready to attack soon as well. Because right now, by the way, we are seeing post after post after post coming out on True Social from the United States president, and he is pretty excited right now, to say the least. So I think something's coming. The ceasefire will expire tomorrow, and I think we're still going to see hostilities regardless of what the statements are. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would definitely have to be with 41%. Attacks by Iran and the United States are most likely going to be happening soon. If it happens on a U.S. timetable, it's either going to be happening within the next 24 hours at this point, or I think that this might be a fairly likely option as well. It's going to happen after the markets close in the stock market this weekend, because we've seen that so far, most warlike actions and statements and threats of utter destruction and desolation in Iran are always given on the weekends when the stock market is closed and not able to react immediately to those statements. Whenever the weekdays come around and the stock market is open or close to opening, we generally see that the statements are that of the dove, and we talk about how much peace is great and how great things are going on making peace, when in reality things are as usual pretty much every single day of the week and don't really change a lot. So I'd have to say that right now the United States is probably forecasting that war is inevitable, and I would have a feeling that the Iranians are largely wanting to return to the war. As well, we did see that inside of their inland areas, the Iranian military was heavily targeted and hit. They still are able to control the Strait of Hormuz, and by continuing an active war, even if they're getting bombed out from the air deep inside of Iran, they're still able to blockade the Hormuz because we haven't challenged their blockade militarily yet, and that then means that due to those two elements, they are able to create fear within the oil markets, which would lead the oil below the price per barrels to be able to skyrocket. So I would largely assume that they're most likely wanting to return to an actual kinetic war, for the reason of causing further panic within the oil markets and also further exacerbating the economic situation that we're finding ourselves in right now to be a significant issue, and still are finding that out right now. But moving us on out of that analysis, and largely my 2 cents on that, it is time for us to move on and down into the area of the Strait of Hormuz, because we have a lot more to talk about than just the Iranian threats today and everything else as far as the indefinite ceasefire that's now been given by the United States. According to some claims by the President of the United States earlier this morning, before he announced the whole indefinite ceasefire, he stated that Iran had violated the ceasefire numerous times, which would suggest that the ceasefire had then collapsed and that we would be returning back to war. It was in about several hours after that we then heard that the ceasefire would then be extended indefinitely. We have also been able to hear that apparently, according to additional statements, according to the New York Times, the vice president's diplomatic trip to Islamabad had been put on hold, according to some U.S. official who spoke to the New York Times. We also were able to hear that apparently there is some rumors at the moment, according to the Wall Street Journal, that the current administration in the United States is considering a financial bailout for the United Arab Emirates over the economic losses sustained from the U.S. war with the Islamic Republic of Iran. It's becoming fairly clear at this moment, regardless whether this statement is accurate or not, that the Wall Street Journal was able to source, that there is significant economic damage that is beginning to largely pile on top of itself for a larger amount of the Gulf state countries whose primary economic motivator or economic engine is the oil and petroleum industry. From what we've seen so far, while the Western world is still seeing that oil resources are beginning to dwindle due to the significant hole in the supply chain that we're seeing right now because of the blockade in Hormuz, a large amount of these Gulf state nations have literally stopped making money and haven't been able to make any money for about the past month and a half. This is due to the fact that most Middle Eastern states, a lot like some others, like the Russian Federation, are economic monoliths, where the largest amount of their economic activity actually comes from a singular industry, that being the petroleum industry. It does appear that at this moment, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Iraq, which get a significant amount of their income and economic activity from oil exports, are seeing that their economies are significantly suffering, now knowing that basically none of their oil is able to be exported, and not only that, a large amount of their oil fields are beginning to be capped and shut down due to the fact that they just don't have any storage capacity left in the country to keep pumping oil out of the ground and putting it in storage tanks. It does seem that this might be a consideration by the United States of America to try and give a bailout to the United Arab Emirates. That might actually be possible, but at the same time, I would also have to say that this is quite bad if we're getting this idea at the moment right now that the economic situation for our U.S.-aligned allies within the region is so bad that we're having to consider just basically giving them tens of billions of dollars or even hundreds of billions to try and keep their economy afloat. At this point, we're having to treat... Yeah, it's pretty bad. At this point, we're basically having to treat all of these Gulf state nations like China might have to treat Russia at some point in the future and just give them money to try and keep them alive for a little bit longer.
Yeah, and also on top of that, it's like, not to get into our domestic situation, but here in the United States, we just added $1 trillion to our national debt over the last couple of months, which is a record pace ever since the pandemic happened. So, I mean, we're not exactly in what you'd call a good fiscal situation here in the United States. So for us to have to start bailing out entire countries like the UAE, if that report turns out to be the case, I mean, that's certainly not a position that the U.S. should be in right now, because we need to bail out ourselves, and there's nobody there to bail us out. So, that's not a good position.
Also, I also just saw someone in the chat, Matthew, say something pretty interesting. Let's use this statement here for some further extrapolation. Someone said, "Wow, this is a mess." And here we are. John Morton said, "Iran has no government to negotiate with. Half the world is out of oil. What the hell are we doing?" And that's a great question, because if you think about it, folks, if the president's statement is correct and contradictory to our belief here on the channel that the Iranians do have a centralized and operational government, let's take the president's statements at face value that they do not have a centralized government that we can actually talk to and negotiate with. Well, why in the world are we going to wait and let them chokehold us indefinitely with a blockade on the Hormuz until they eventually get a government back together? Why in the world would we wait? How long would we have to wait? Would that be months? Would that be a year? Would that be several years? How long would that be? And we can't wait that long. No matter the answer, even if it's just a couple of months, we can't wait that long. This is causing irreparable damage to the global oil industry. Not only that, to the global economy, especially here within the Western sphere of influence. We can't wait for the Iranians to get a government back up and running to where we can then negotiate with them. If that is what we're waiting for, then we should just completely stop talking with the Islamic Republic of Iran and conduct significant attacks against the Iranian forces that are blockading the Strait of Hormuz and reopen it. Because we literally can't wait that long for them to get a government operational if those claims are true. But at the moment right now, a lot of people are talking about this very situation, as the United States is trying to negotiate some sort of a deal with the Iranians from what we've heard. That's why the ceasefire has now been extended indefinitely unilaterally by the United States. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that right now, and what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so right now you can see that the U.S. is saying, at least in their own words, that the reason why they're giving a unilateral extension of the ceasefire is because they still believe, in at least their allegations, that it is possible to negotiate a better deal with Iran than the JCPOA, which was widely criticized and also extremely criticized by the current president. So is it even possible to reach a deal better than the JCPOA or even equivalent to it? Is that even possible at this point? 69% said no, a deal is not viable at this point, while 13% said depends on Iran's next move, and 12% said yes, it is still possible. And here's my thing. I see a lot of people in the chat saying, well, why is the U.S. negotiating with terrorists? I would tend to agree with that because in this case right here, I mean, number one, the Iranian regime is a terrorist regime. We have to acknowledge that first. Number two, if you try to make a deal with these people, they're not going to adhere to it. That was the problem with the JCPOA. They were not adhering to the enforcement statutes in that agreement. They would not let the nuclear investigators into the place to inspect their nuclear sites. And then we found out later, well, they were violating the hell out of that deal the entire time. And we just handed Iran a whole bunch of leverage and we got nothing out of it. So trying to negotiate another deal with basically the more extreme version of Ayatollah Khamenei, who's his son, who's currently in charge, that sounds like a terrible idea because it's literally a worse position than we were in with the JCPOA. So I don't think a deal is viable. Also, on top of that, it's like, I mean, Iran's already made it perfectly clear they are not going to be backing off any of their claims. They just came out in the last 24 to 48 hours and said that they were never going to let the Strait of Hormuz go, which right now is the number one thing we need reopened is the Strait of Hormuz. So that pretty much takes talking off the table by itself. Taking everything else out of the equation. So, I mean, a deal is not possible. That's why I think the U.S. is stalling. I think they're using these talks as a way to keep rearming themselves. And then they're going to launch a very large attack, would be my guess. Because anything outside of that is just pure insanity at this point. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I'm also with the overwhelming majority of people. A deal clearly is not viable. I do not know what the obsession is in the U.S. government about trying to brag about how great deal making is when they really can never make any deal stick ever or even get to the point of making a deal. We cannot make a deal with terrorists. It is an unacceptable moral position to take that we would ever let a terrorist group like the Islamic regime be legitimized to the point that we would make a deal with them. It is also one that would be on unstable ground even if we overcame that moral or sort of a objective obstacle, because then the Iranians would never follow through with it because they're terrorists. On top of that, we also know that even if the Islamic regime put forward a error that they were following along with whatever agreement they made, we can be guaranteed, because of the example of the JCPOA, that they are going to do anything and everything to pretend like they're adhering to a deal while circumventing it the entire time. It's an absolute waste to try and make a deal with the Islamic Republic of Iran. And not only that, we then have to go back to what the president's already said today. We can't even make a deal with them because there's nobody, according to the president, that is actually in control of the entire country to make a deal with. And also another thing that I have to say, folks, is that this is why, and you know, not to go back to the very beginning of the whole war, but this is why you generally don't go and wipe out the centralized government that's in charge of a country on minute one of a war, because then you might end up having a problem like this to where nobody's actually in charge of the country, technically, to be able to negotiate and then work off of a position of what the country's going to do. If Khamenei was still there, the bastard that he is, and he was still alive right now, technically the entire Iranian government would still be oriented around him. So then at that point, we would be able to get a clear answer as to whether they're willing to agree to anything or not, and then we could continue our military actions against them if they're not willing to make a deal, and in them if they are willing to make a deal. And we would have a solidified framework to work with at that point as to what the Iranian government is doing. Instead, we killed basically everybody who was in charge of the Iranian government at the very start of the war, and here and right now we're claiming that we don't even know who was in charge of Iran to be able to negotiate a deal. This is why, folks, I was saying at the beginning of the war, you know, maybe, like, also, this is why I was saying this with Maduro as well, maybe it's not a good idea to kind of, like, half-ass, like, overthrowing a government, like, just nabbing one dude, or, you know, just bombing a whole bunch of important people in Iran, because then at that point, we're not really achieving much of anything, and not only that, we could be confusing the situation later, and that's apparently what we've done at this point. And now the issue is, folks, we have smashed this thing to pieces, and now we're saying that none of these pieces have been able to glue the others together to it, to be able to actually talk to us. We can't wait for them to glue themselves back together. We have to do something to get the Strait of Hormuz closed. Right now, in some European countries like Germany, Lufthansa is having to slash a whole bunch of its flights for the foreseeable future because there's just not enough fuel to run them. And that's going to end up boiling down to where they just don't have any fuel to run hardly at all. That's going to start happening across every industry. We can't sit there and wait for that to happen in all of our allied nations, which is going to cause economic depressions over there, which is going to economically drag us down over here. It's just impossible. We have to start conducting military actions to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, Because if we do not, we are going to be seeing that we will be waiting forever, and the entire time that we're waiting for something to happen, our economy is going down the tubes every single week. It's a horrendous position. But moving us on out of that and back into our news out of the Strait of Hormuz, we have also been able to hear that apparently the U.S. Treasury has put out a report today. And according to the U.S. Treasury, they announced that 14 entities designated in the previous reported Office of Foreign Assets Control sanctions were involved in Iran's ballistic missile and unmanned aerial vehicle production process. This includes the designated Mahan Air aircraft, which were used to transport weapons for the Iranian regime. So it does appear that we're getting some sort of an understanding that the Treasury has put out a report today on additional companies that are helping the Islamic Republic of Iran with their ongoing war effort. We have also seen as well that, according to the information we have, the strait is still closed today, which is quite obvious. As a result of all of this that has happened, at least on our end, and this is before we hardly get into what the Iranians have claimed today, which is really starting to get the markets panicked from what we can tell, oil prices are already skyrocketing again. This is what they did today. They jumped up about $5 to $6 a barrel to over $100 per barrel for Brent crude. Really quickly to check on the WTI crude prices, which I'll get for y'all right here. WTI crude is actually sitting at a fairly manageable level, and while it did see a somewhat minor spike today, it's sitting around $90 a barrel. Certainly not optimal, but doing a lot better than the Brent crude prices, which are being heavily affected by the ongoing crisis and situation that we're seeing right now. The Iranians have also made it clear, according to their foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, that they're interpreting the blockading of Iranian ports as an act of war and thus a violation of the ceasefire. Striking a commercial vessel and taking its crew hostage is an even greater violation. It was breaking a blockade, so, that kind of is a non sequitur point. But Iran knows how to neutralize restrictions, how to defend its interest, and how to resist bullying. Meanwhile, they bully us by continuing to close the strait and then pretending like they don't have a centralized government that's calling the shots. Really a smart one right there. But we also have been able to hear up inside of Tehran a great deal more of the Iranian statements and the Iranian position that has been taken today, which will be affecting their foreign policy position and analysis well into the future. The Iranians did clarify today, according to Tasnim news agency, that the Iranians did not request a ceasefire extension, which the United States unilaterally announced today. That means that the Iranians will not be adhering to this indefinite ceasefire, at least according to their current claims right now. The president, and here's the thing, folks, the president can announce that U.S. forces won't pop a shot at Iran for however long we want. But the problem is that if we don't talk to the Iranians and have them agree to not pop a shot at us as well indefinitely, that means that we didn't actually agree to a ceasefire or a bilateral ceasefire. What we have done is a unilateral ceasefire. That means that U.S. forces aren't going to shoot at Iran until they shoot at us. Meaning that right now, at least off of what we would understand the current foreign policy situation to be, the ball is in Iran's court to restart this conflict. We have also seen as well that the Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif stated the following today: "On my personal behalf and on behalf of Field Marshal Syed Asim Munir, I sincerely thank the President for graciously accepting our request to extend the ceasefire to allow ongoing diplomatic efforts to take their course. With the trust and confidence reposed in, Pakistan shall continue its earnest efforts for negotiated settlement of the conflict. I sincerely hope that both sides will continue to observe the ceasefire and be able to conclude a comprehensive peace deal during the second round of talks scheduled at Islamabad for a permanent end to the conflict." I have a feeling that Shehbaz Sharif's words are falling on deaf ears at this point, because the Iranians have made it incredibly clear they're not going to adhere to an indefinite extension, and not only that, they're getting ready to start the war all over again. The Iranians did reiterate once again, according to Tasnim news agency, which put out the statement today, that Iran's negotiating team has informed the American side through the Pakistani mediators that it will not attend negotiations on Wednesday. So far, we have not seen any Iranian or U.S. aircraft arrive in Islamabad once more to continue any rounds of talks. We've also heard that the Iranian IRGC stated that their missiles are ready for launch today, once again making it incredibly clear that they are on the very verge of conducting significant attacks throughout the region once more. The Iranians then further reiterated that the president's ceasefire extension means nothing, and the losing side cannot dictate terms. That was according to an advisor to Iran's parliament speaker, who issued that statement today. Once again, making it exceptionally clear that the current public Iranian position is that they will not be adhering to any sort of a unilateral extension from the U.S.'s end of a ceasefire. They also then reiterated once more, just in case if this was not clear yet, that the missiles are ready for launch and they will not be attending any negotiations whatsoever. They then warned of attacks. This was one of our most recent statements before we went on air, that the Islamic regime's Khatam al-Anbiya command says forces are at 100% readiness, of whatever's left of them, warning any attack will trigger immediate strikes on pre-designated targets and a harsher lesson, quote-unquote, for the United States and Israel, making it incredibly clear that the Iranian central government is putting out statements that show that they are back in a warlike mindset and a wartime footing, preparing for either preemptive or counterattacks to U.S. attacks or strikes, or to start off the war once more by conducting offensive strikes of their own against us and our Gulf state allies. In Tehran today, they also pulled off a little parade, which appears to have shown off some of the larger missiles like the Khorramshahr 4 within a nighttime parade within the streets of Tehran, which we actually have some footage of right here. We can see that a large number of pro-regime citizens have come out to apparently wave Iranian flags around a Khorramshahr 4, aka the Yellow Crayola.
Yeah, really. It's like the big Crayola on the thing. Also, by the way, how many of these people are paid actors and how many are actual citizens out here, I wonder?
They're probably all paid, or they probably were told by their employers, you have to go show up to this thing or else you're fired. Because that's what they actually do in Russia, is that they tell all of their government workers, hey, by the way, there's a Putin rally coming, so y'all all got to be there, and we're going to make sure to take attendance. If you're not there, you're going to be fired. So a lot of these people might just be government officials that have been told the same thing like people were told in Russia.
Yeah, it could be. And also, by the way, you said that was a mock-up of the missile, or is that a real one right there?
Oh, no,
in the
that's
center?
a legitimate real missile on a TEL.
Oh, well, there's one of them. Well, at least we know the location of this one, at least. There's one that you guys can start with right there.
We can put money on it, folks, that this Khorramshahr is right there. We're very sure of it. Not because of, any intelligence or anything. It's just that it's literally on a video right here in the middle of Tehran. So we do know of that one, at least. We also got to see an additional clip as well of the TEL in the stowed and transport configuration, apparently carrying a Goddard 110, showing that they've actually whipped out a decent variety of their intermediate range and short range ballistic missiles for this little nighttime parade that they just conducted. When you see these guys up here waving around AKs, apparently they're trying to film a rap video, is what I heard, like a rap music video. But that's just a word on the street. We can also clearly tell, folks, as well, just to make this incredibly clear, that while the Iranian government is not in charge of anything, because we're claiming that they don't have a centralized government, it is obvious to tell everyone, clearly obvious, that this is a dual-use good right here. This is used for humanitarian and wartime purposes. And we all know that this right here is a little morale booster and also a part of public gatherings and cultural enrichment, which clearly makes this a humanitarian object without doubt. We also know that it can be used to be able to be fired at our forces and our boys right now in the Middle East, or it could be fired at Israel or any Gulf state allies, making it a military weapon as well. You know what? Scratch that, folks. It's clearly humanitarian. This is obviously only for cultural enrichment, and any sort of a suggestion that this could be used as a physical weapon is just completely unabasedly false. I mean, obviously, the Iranians or the Islamic regime is a peaceful government, and they would never produce weapons of war on a scale that has been untold, at least in terms of missile weaponry, to be able to try and conduct acts of terror throughout the region. That would be obviously unheard of. Cultural enrichment is the only use of this system. But moving us on out of this nighttime parade and my humongous amount of sarcasm on that parade as well, it is obvious that the Iranians are still on a wartime footing. Outside of all of that, the United States then made an announcement today, a fairly vague one, but a significant allegation that appears to be suggesting that the People's Republic of China may have been trying to provide some form of military equipment or military parts and components to be able to help the Islamic Republic of Iran either help, further defend itself against U.S. attacks, or to be able to produce greater amounts of weaponry to conduct offensive attacks against the United States of America and our allies within the region. We did hear that the U.S. President voiced surprise that a vessel attempted, I'm trying to skip some of the parts that we can't say on air, attempted to run the U.S. blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. According to a direct statement that was made to CNBC earlier this morning, we caught a ship yesterday that had some things on it, which wasn't very nice. A gift from China, perhaps. I don't know. But I was a little surprised.
Man, I'll tell you what, gotta gotta look out for them big things on those ships. I'll tell you what, gotta look out for that. Not very nice. That's very vague, by the way. I wonder why he's choosing to be so vague. Are they trying to like simply not create a huge escalation with China, or
Oh,
what? Or are they
I know
being
what it is.
vague because maybe they're not wanting to really admit what they found on the ship? And also, they didn't even name what ship they found it on. We're having to kind of take a guess at what ship they're talking about here, because we don't know which one they're talking about. He didn't name the ship. So, very, very odd, very odd.
I know why it was made that way. You want to know why?
He's trying to avoid World War III, I would assume.
No, that upcoming trip to China. That's it. Like, that's probably it. That's why it was so vague, so that way we wouldn't go, China is providing weapons of war to the Islamic Republic of Iran, clearly supporting an enemy of the United States. Let's just gloss it over so that way I can go to China. You know, it's like, if they're providing weapons of war, I think we ought to just be upfront about that and say, you know what, we're canceling our trip to China due to this new information that we just got from the Marines that we're inspecting whatever vessel we've just seized. I mean, to me, I feel like that would be fairly sort of an obvious sort of an action to take, because if the People's Republic of China is militarily supporting the Islamic Republic of Iran, then we should not have any intention of conducting diplomatic dialogue with the Chinese, and therefore the upcoming talks should be canceled. That would be the clear, obvious thing to do, because that statement is vaguely saying there was definitely some sort of contraband that the Chinese were sending to Iran, and it's obviously not cocaine, so it's most likely weapons, and they're supporting an enemy of the United States. We shouldn't be engaging in dialogue with these people. The visit to China is canceled. We're going to go visit Taiwan instead. Maybe we should do something like that. That's what I feel like would be appropriate, considering that China is a sworn enemy of the Republic. But moving us on from that, a lot of people are talking about this very situation and the very vague allegation that was made that the Chinese put a big thing on that ship and we found it today. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so we don't know very much about it, but I think you can kind of get an idea of what the president's probably referring to here without him saying it, in precise wordage. He's using the very vague vocabulary here to describe this. But apparently some ship that was seized near Iran apparently had some things on it, possibly from China. They said possibly a gift from China. So what are your thoughts? 66% said it sounds like China got caught sending something, and the only thing they'd pretty much be sending is probably weapons. 23% said it sounds too vague to know anything, and 7% said it's a pressure tactic on China to get them to back off. And I would say that we've been saying for a while that China's been sending weapons to Iran. It's been, documented in several different reports that have been out there. But the U.S. has generally stopped short of acknowledging that China's sending weapons. They keep trying to pretend like Xi is not involved in a proxy war inside of Iran, but we know that he is. Xi Jinping's definitely involved, and the Chinese government is supplying intelligence, weapons, etc. To the Iranians. And obviously, it's not in the wide open because they keep it secret. It's not going to be like advertised on a billboard. But we now see that apparently when the Marines boarded some ship that was seized near Iran, they found some stuff on it, most likely weapons and containers. That's probably what they found. And I would say the U.S. might have had a tip-off about this, because if y'all recall, when a couple of these Iranian ships were seized, what was the first thing the U.S. did when they seized it? They sent in the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit to board the ship and start searching all the containers on those ships. That seems a little bit odd to me, unless they knew something was probably on that ship that wasn't supposed to be there. So I would say they probably were tipped off. They jumped on the ship to actually expose the fact that China was sending weapons. They found out it was, and now the U.S. is having to make a big decision. Do they publicly out the situation directly and make a big deal about it, or do they tamp it down like they're currently doing and avoid causing a direct conflict with China? Because if the U.S. directly acknowledges it, then we're going to possibly be looking at a conflict between the U.S. and China, which could turn pretty ugly. So, I'm with the 66%. I think they got caught. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that the Chinese definitely did get caught sending some form of contraband to the Iranians. Now, what that is, it could be anything. It could be an air defense radar. It could be components to produce missiles with. It could be solid rocket fuel. It could be anything, but it's definitely something that was going to be used either to produce a weapon, or it was a completed system that would support pre-existing weapon systems inside of Iran. It is some form of contraband to that degree. I've seen some people in the chat saying something, though, and this is an interesting claim, but I have to give a counter to it, that because the United States is so heavily economically intertwined, like we say here on this channel, the U.S. president cannot cancel talks with China But that would be a little bit false, because if we cancel the talks with China, nothing happens. Like the Chinese are obviously not going to put a 190% tariff on us, because that would economically destroy them, much like it would destroy us. All these talks amount to, folks, of going over to China and, meandering around Beijing. It's a nice photo op, and only positive things can come out of it as far as growing relations with the communist Chinese. So we could either, agree to opening up further trade with the Chinese, which would be horrendous, as that's generally going against the kind of framework that we're working with the Chinese at this point, which is slowly mitigating our economic involvement with them, and then having everyone who offshore to China offshore elsewhere, removing most of our economic interest with the Chinese out of their country. And so generally, even visiting China wouldn't produce anything beneficial for our larger long-term strategic framework. If we cancel the talks, however, nothing happens. There is no meeting with the Chinese. There is no, de-thawing of relations that may lead to increased cooperation with us and China. And they're also not going to conduct any sort of reciprocal or sort of retaliatory action if the talks were canceled. We just cancel the talks so that way we do not put forward the message that while China is giving weapons to Iran to kill our very own men and women who are serving in the armed forces right now, that we're going to go and visit Xi Jinping and go get all chummy with him while he's trying to help another country kill our people. That's generally the message that we would want to send. And you don't have to go any farther than that. You just have to make the statement, looks clearly like the Chinese were giving weapons to Iran. Because of this, we don't really feel it's appropriate to go over and visit China right now. It's fairly neutral. It's not creating any sort of a tense situation, but it's also making it clear that we have boundaries as a nation. And we're not going to go visit and chum up with a nation that is trying to get our armed forces killed in the Middle East right now. I think that's clearly what we should be doing. But apparently our priorities must lie elsewhere, because that's my position, looking out for the best interest of the Republic and having some common respect for the citizenry. But apparently that sort of a thing is not that much in vogue these days, I suppose. But moving us on out of that development, well, you've also seen that the United States of America's Department of Defense did issue footage today showing that the motor tanker Tiffany was also apparently seized today as well for sanctions evasion, and also being on the sanctions registry for the United States of America for, at some point, loading up oil and then transporting it from Iran, I suppose, to the People's Republic of China. And there they are, boarding the tanker and moving towards the
very
bridge.
orange tanker. Safety first, they say.
Safety first. That's what I've been saying for 25 years. And so when I say run the blockade, you run the blockade. Man, I tell you, that thing's got that BNSF orange on that thing. It's crazy.
Yeah, it really does.
But still, it is another tanker seized, and at the moment we've heard that there may have been other tankers that have been seized over the course of the day. It's just that sadly we don't have any video or picture evidence yet of that to be able to show and to be able to report. Moving us on out of that, all off on a sideshow, we've seen that a significant amount of reconnaissance activity has been conducted by the U.S. Air Force and the Navy today, including an RC-135U, a U.S. Navy P-8 Poseidon, pictured here, and also a Japanese AWACS aircraft that were all within the same area of the East China Sea. The reason why they were there is because we're trying to get more information on this thing, which is China's new Liaoning class nuclear, I believe this one is a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. This thing is largely working a lot off of the modified Kuznetsov design. It is a Type 003 class aircraft carrier of the People's Republic of China. And while it generally has the same sort of aircraft complement and combat capabilities, it is believed that the Chinese may have made significant modifications to their original modified Kuznetsov design that will make this aircraft carrier a little bit more potent and will also make it capable of conducting longer duration and longer distance missions for the People's Republic of China, meaning that they're starting to get a lot closer to being able to conduct global power projection with a carrier, at least one carrier strike group. That won't really mean much, at least for China in the short term, as far as their strategic outlook is concerned, as this Liaoning aircraft carrier is generally only capable of carrying about 27 airframes. That is about a third of what a U.S. supercarrier is able to carry, like the Ford class or the Nimitz class. On top of that, China also doesn't have a large enough amount of destroyers and also enough naval support and auxiliary bases and auxiliary vessels to be able to support significant global operations for this sort of a carrier group, meaning that while in technicality this thing may be able to conduct global operations, it would not be able to see that any of its carrier strike groups or escorts would be able to follow along with it, and also its resupply and auxiliary support forces in the background that would keep this thing out at sea for a while are generally also non-existent to that capacity as well. So China is definitely trying to make steps, probably over the next decade, to getting to being able to field global carrier strike groups a lot like the United States does. And this is a step in that direction, but it doesn't mean that they'll be capable of doing that probably for the next 5 years. They certainly will be able to...
Also, are you sure that this is a nuclear-powered one? Because I'm reading here, and it looks like it might not be nuclear-powered, actually.
One second, I want to make sure, because I was told... Let's see here. I was told that at some point it might be... So, the propulsion on this thing is steam turbines. That sounds like it might be. And I want to make sure here really quickly. Let's see. It's the second carrier for launching the first of its kind. Aircraft carrier. Blah, blah, blah. So, it uses the electromagnetic catapults. And I'm trying to see if it has what it has for propulsion. Okay, so I am incorrect. This thing actually does use diesel generators to produce steam for steam turbines. So it generally is working still off of the Type 002's modified Kuznetsov design in that regard. But I heard that at some point China was working somewhere in the pipe of having some form of nuclear propulsion, but apparently I've got the two stories mixed up and just assumed that that was the Type 003. The Type 003 is not nuclear powered. Need to make that clear now. Thank you, Matthew, for getting that clarification out for us on air. Because China still will not field, due to that information, huge mistake, and my apologies on my part, folks, for that. They still will not be fielding a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier anytime here within the next several years. Because if they do have an aircraft...
What's up with the ramp on the front of it, by the way? Isn't that something like the Iranians had put on their drone carrier? They'd put like a ramp like that. It's like, what's the purpose of that? Because to my knowledge, none of our U.S. aircraft carriers have anything like that on it because it's not really required. So what's the logic behind that?
So the logic behind that, from what I understand, is the general principle, because this is actually something you see on basically every carrier design that's not French or American, is that it's supposed to be able to allow for a little bit of additional lift in terms of the air passing over the wings on these sorts of aircraft on board the vessel, because the lengths of these carriers is a good bit shorter than ours. And I want to make sure to get this for y'all really quickly, what the difference between the Type 003, actually this would be the Type 002, let me go get that really quickly, the Shandong right here. So this is the Type 002. That's the one that we're seeing right there. And let me go and show this to y'all here really quickly. The length of this aircraft carrier is 1,000 feet. Let me go pull up the length of a Gerald R. Ford class, because this is the important part, I think, is deck length to be able to allow for a proper amount of lift.
I'm seeing a lot of people say that it doesn't have a catapult system on board. I'll be honest, I don't really know much about China's aircraft carrier they've built here, but I think it's their first one. And yeah, it is their first aircraft carrier they've built. So I don't know a whole bunch about it, but I'm seeing a lot of people say there's no catapult system, and that's why they have the ramp, because they're relying on the ramp to give it enough loft or lift to be able to have enough air power not to stall and simply crash into water. So I can't really see that right off the bat if it doesn't have it. But I mean, that sounds plausible. Like that could be the case.
Let's see. Does the, let's see, Chinese modified Kuznetsov have an, let's see, like catapult? Let's see. Let me see if I can find out some information on this. So, the Liaoning, which is the one that we're seeing right here, actually does not have catapults. So that is the reason why it has the angled deck.
Yeah, so in other words, that sounds like the cheap way to do it, like to build like a skateboard ramp at the end of your aircraft carrier instead of like building like a complex catapult system. So I don't know, like I'm not a naval expert on this whole situation, so I don't know if it's better to have the catapult or if it's, equal to have a ramp. But to me, it seems like having a catapult seems like the actual technological technological solution to the problem instead of just building, a skateboard ramp at the end of it.
Well, that's actually something that the British have done throughout their whole history. Even their most modern carrier iterations, like the Queen Elizabeth class of carrier, actually do not have catapults either. Now that I'm looking around, and sorry, folks, I've been trying my best on this one from what I remember, and I'm remembering everything wrong. So my apologies for that one on this story. But outside of that, the Queen Elizabeth class also doesn't have catapults either, and they also use the sick Tony Hawk ramp at the bow to be able to get the F-35s off the deck. So kind of a little neat in a way, but also kind of seeming a little bit backwards. Now, the Type 003 is changing that, and let me go show the Type 003 for everyone here really quickly. Let's see here. Here's the Type 003. This one actually has a much more conventional angled deck design, a lot like our Nimitz and Ford classes, and it also has electromagnetic catapults, a lot like the Ford class as well. So that's one thing that I guess is a little bit unique about the Type 003 is that it is finally moving away from the older designs with the Tony Hawk ramp at the front, and they are starting to move towards the electromagnetic catapults, or more so kind of like the catapult concept in general, whether it's steam or electromagnetic, which does give them a little bit of an increased capability in some regards. But anyways, moving us on from that story, the U.S. was trying the best it could to be able to take a look at this little thing while it was underway today. I would have to be honest with you all. I mean, the Tony Hawk ramp is sick, but I think I'd rather go, like Matthew was saying in the chat, with the flat angled flight decks like we've had here in the United States throughout most of our carriers' modern history since about the 50s and the 60s. I think it's just a better design. But anyways, moving us on out of East Asia, it is time for us to move on and into the rest of the... Oh, wait a minute, hang on. I'm sorry, everyone. We actually have more news to cover inside the Middle East. I wanted to give you all a quick little break over there in East Asia, but we have to make sure to get to the little bits of additional news that we have within the Middle East, and there's just a little left. And one thing that was stated today, folks, was something else by the president. I didn't put this one down on the map because if I put down everything that the president said every day, we'd have like 50 bulletins alone. So Matthew, would you like to give a little bit of background as to what the president said in that regard today about the Operation Midnight Hammer and the nuclear material was completely destroyed, but we also need to recover it? Would you like to give everyone a little bit of a rundown on that to get us on into this poll and then talk about what everyone's thinking about that?
Yeah, so right now, I'll just go ahead and read off the poll question and go through a little bit of the detail about it. The U.S. officials are claiming that Iran's nuclear material is merely dust buried beneath the former nuclear sites because they're saying last year during Midnight Hammer, when the B-2 bombers struck Iran's nuclear sites, they're claiming that during those strikes, the nuclear material was simply dispersed, and that's what they're calling destroyed. And they're saying that they would have to bring in excavators, they would have to go and try to, get the enriched uranium out of the ground. So that's what they're saying now. But the problem is, though, there's some discrepancies with that story because we've heard a lot of different versions of the story right here, and none of them really seem to add up, to be perfectly honest, because before we had heard there might be an operation by U.S. ground forces to go into Iran and recover the approximately 1,000 pounds or approximately 1,000 pounds of enriched uranium that's in their country. But the problem is, if it's dust and it's simply dispersed amongst the dirt, you really can't do that with a ground raid. So that doesn't really add up with that whole story that was out before. So somebody is lying here. Somebody's telling a story. Either Iran is or the United States is. So it looks like 61% said it sounds false, the whole story about nuclear dust, and it's probably not destroyed. 13% said sounds true, it's mostly destroyed, and 17% said I'm 50-50 on this one. And I would say it sounds false. That's my hunch right now. It sounds like it could be a false report right here. We've heard the story go from Iran having enriched uranium, several hundred kilograms of it. We've heard it go from that to then going to nuclear dust. I'm like, yeah, nuclear dust. I'm like, that doesn't sound right. And also, by the way, there was also another report out there that Russia had offered to take the enriched uranium into their possession out from Iran and store it in their country. How can they store it if it's mixed in with the dirt and it's dust? That doesn't make any sense either. So, the story seems to be a little bit fluid here. It seems to be changing with the wind, no pun intended. So I'm leaning toward the 61%. It doesn't sound like it adds up. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that it doesn't add up. I don't like. There's definitely some sort of an operational nuclear program in Iran. Because also, let's put together these two and two pieces right here. So, if our mission was completely successful in destroying everything, why did we go to war with them this year because of their nuclear ambitions? who would care? I mean, everything was destroyed, right? Last year. So what was the point of bombing them and going to war with them again in an even larger form to be able to see that they don't pursue nuclear weapons? I mean, that's obviously showing that something there is afoot and amiss. Because the fact that we went to war with them last year and claimed that it was a 100% success and everything went fine and we destroyed everything and everything's right as rain wouldn't really line up with the idea that we went to war with them again this year because we said that they're still working on a nuclear weapon and that's still a threat to the United States. That doesn't make any sense at all. It's like, if that was the case, why in the world do we even go to war with them, and why are we in a war with them right now?
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good point. It's like if the whole idea we went to war was because Iran was on the cusp of a nuclear breakthrough, then the enriched uranium would have to be intact. It would have to be in some type of storage containers somewhere securely stored inside of the country. If it's true that it's simply merely dust and you'd have to use excavators to get it out, then that means that Iran wasn't truly near a nuclear breakthrough. That pretty much blows that whole narrative to smithereens, because you can't build a nuke if it's all mixed up, buried under the ground, and you can't do that. So, I mean, they're kind of hurting their own narrative a little bit by saying that. It makes it sound like the whole reason for going to war was not the reason we went to war, which is a little bit odd. I think they're getting their stories mixed up a little bit too much here.
Yeah, I think it's so much to the point that it's no longer making any sense at all, really. But outside of that, though, I hope we were able to address that one well. And before we move on into the rest of our news in the Middle East, I do have to give a humongous thanks to everyone who's been here and watching so far. Over the course of about the first hour of the stream, we've had about 100,000 people watch, and about 22,000 people were here at the peak. I've got to say that we're entirely appreciative and incredibly thankful for all of y'all watching. It's been a great and wonderful thing to be able to cover the news for each and every single one of y'all again as usual. And I do have to say that, of course, we're very thankful for a lot of y'all considering this channel to be your primary source of news. Before we move on into the rest of our news for the night, which comes from the Middle East, the Americas, and also the entirety of Europe and everything that happened up there today, I do want to make sure that we take a quick moment to be able to speak to a couple of y'all. And we're going to be getting 3 questions from the chat and then moving on to the rest of the news for the night. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so our first of 3 super chats goes to Olaf Vilenga, and thank you very much, Olaf, for that very generous $55 support, and we do appreciate that very, very much. That's €55, by the way, all the way from the EU, and thank you, Olaf, for that support. I said, good job. I've been following for 3 years.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, Olaf, and really nice. We thank you so much for watching for 3 years. One hell of a time. And I gotta say a humongous thanks to you for that incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running day in and day out. And I've got to thank you greatly for that once again, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we would have never been able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to continue to make it possible tonight. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a $50 support from Fred Vreeman, all the way from here in the United States, that is. And thank you very much, Fred, for that 50 American dollars. And we do appreciate that very much. He said, Enforcer Matt, when I was a kid, we used to sing all the armed forces songs when my dad played a World War II accordion at family gatherings. Also, it's pretty cool, by the way. He said, it would be cool to have the lyrics as an option on the intro. I'll send if you want. Easy to add. And what say y'all?
And that's pretty cool. Like that would be a neat thing to do. It's just that unfortunately it might be a little bit hard to add in, because we would have to make it sync up with the measures in the score properly, which would probably take a little bit of time to be able to do, because we'd have to match up the tempo and everything. It's definitely doable, but at the same time, then the text might not show up as well, because the video was kind of designed. Like, to be honest with you all, the project was kind of incomplete and still is with the intro, because the original idea behind the intro was that it was going to be an orchestra and a choir, but due to the prohibitively expensive costs of making the intro, which, just to let y'all know, because it's like literally like the grand magnum opus of the channel, basically, it costs over like $1,000 a minute to have music like that orchestrated from start to finish, like from scratch. And so an orchestra would add about another $1,000 a minute to it. And so sadly, we never got to add the choir, which would have made the thing complete. But just due to the cost alone, we were never able to do that. And so the video was actually made to have the lyrics sung by a choir, and then it never was, and they might take a little bit of a reworking of the visual segment to be able to see the actual text on screen clearly. It's an idea though, and I could certainly see about doing it, no doubt about it. It's just that it might not turn out well, and then it might have to be scratched if the like text isn't visible. But I hope that does address it the best I can, and a huge thanks to you for support. If you want to send that over, you can, and I'll try and see about doing that actually, Fred. And a huge thanks to you for the support and help this channel to keep it running. And before we move on into our last question this segment, we actually have a new statement that's come out from the El Presidente. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so it looks like this statement here came out right as we were going live, and I didn't catch it at the very beginning. So we'll go over it right now. It looks like the president's made another Truth Social post right here, and I'll go double check it on the Truth Social website in a minute. But for now, though, let's take a look and see what he said here on Twitter. And it was also posted on Truth Social. He said, Iran doesn't want the Strait of Hormuz closed. They want it open so they can make $500 million a day, which is therefore what they are losing if it is closed, and they only say they want it closed because I have it totally blockaded, closed. So they merely want to save face. People approached me 4 days ago saying, sir, Iran wants to open the strait immediately, but if we do that, there can never be a deal with Iran unless we blow up the rest of their country, their leaders included, signed the president.
What does that mean?
Yeah, what is that? Yeah, am I misunderstanding? Am I having a stroke, or does that not make sense, like, grammatically? Like, do you understand that? I'm not understanding. Do you have it pulled up, by the way? Because let's see here. Can we see it on the screen?
Well, do we have it reposted on the Twitter?
Yeah, it's on the Twitter. Let's see this on the screen, because I need to see this also.
It's
like,
here.
let the audience see it too.
So
yeah, here it is.
Open it so you can make 500, which is therefore what they are losing if it's closed. They only say they want it closed because they have it totally blocked. So they merely want to save. People approached me 4 days ago saying, "Oh my God, sir, Iran wants to open up the strait immediately. But if we do that, there can never be a deal with Iran unless we blow up." What the hell does that mean?
That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make any sense. I thought I was having a stroke when I read it the first time. I was thinking something's not like making logical sense. Well, we want the Strait of Hormuz open, so why is the deal not possible if they open the strait? Because that's what we want.
Wait a minute, this is what this says. Like, if I boil this down to the basic language of it, it says we want the strait open and Iran wants the strait open, but if we open the strait and it's all good, then we have to kill everybody in Iran, and that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like, that's not really adding up.
Yeah, that doesn't make that. There's somebody listening in the comments. Are we going nuts, or does something about this not make sense? Because that last part there was post. It doesn't make any logical sense. Like that, it simply doesn't. I mean, just on its face.
Let's see. I see some people. A lot of people are like, this doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any sense at all, because it's like so here's the thing. So Iran wants the strait open. But that's not true, because when we didn't have a blockade on Iran, the strait was still closed. So they weren't saving face then. They were literally just closing it because they wanted it closed to put pressure on us. So then we finally blockaded their blockade to try and get at them, and then it really didn't do anything to them. Because, you know, blockades, economic damage is long-term. It takes a while for it to actually build up and take effect. So now we're at the position of it's still closed, and then we're also blockading all of their ships. And apparently they're just doing that to save face, although it is causing us a lot of damage economically in the forecasts of when we're running out of oil, or most of the world will be. And then apparently if they open the strait and then we open the strait, we're just going to bomb everyone in the country and like kill them or something. So
wait, I don't. This is now. See, folks, this is what happens right here. Not trying to get political, but this is a life lesson moment right here. If your lies get so tangled up that your story starts like going sideways, like the narrative right now is all over the place. Like it's all over the place. Iran was the ones blockading the strait. That's number one. Now the U.S. is trying to say, now that there's a U.S. blockade, which is secondary to the Iranian blockade, now the U.S. is the one blockading it, and Iran wants it open. I mean, that doesn't make any damn sense. This is insanity. Like this is literally going berserko crazy with this right here. You can't say that Iran wants it open when they're the ones that blockaded it.
You know, oh my God. I hate this stuff, folks. I mean, the analysis on the stuff. like it's so hard, folks, to even make an analysis on this without people screaming, especially that I'm becoming political, because like I don't really have a high tolerance for stupidity at all, and this is just absolutely stupid. I mean, like, so if the Iranians open up the strait, which is what we want, apparently we would never be able to make a deal with Iran until we blow up everything else in the country, including all of the leaders they currently have. Which also, by the way, the president just claimed before this that there are no leaders in Iran and there isn't a central government, and so they're trying to form one. So this statement is suggesting they actually do have a central government. But then the prior statement that was made, that where we announced that we were indefinitely extending the ceasefire, claimed that they didn't have a central government and they didn't have any central leadership.
Yeah, and also get this, by the way. I mean, just reading it, I'm starting to get a grasp on what he's saying here. It still doesn't make any sense, but I'm starting to get a grasp on it. You know, he's saying that people approached him 4 days ago saying, "Sir, Iran wants to open the strait immediately." But he's also saying at the same time that apparently the U.S. wants to keep it closed because they can never do it or something with a deal. I don't really know how to interpret this. But also at the same time, though, it's like, so now the U.S. is being the ones that don't want to open it, even though it's destroying the global economy. Now the U.S. doesn't want to open it because Iran wants to open it. And if they open it, then there can never be a deal with Iran, because then the U.S. military will have to blow up the rest of their country, including the new leadership. I mean that doesn't even make any sense. This is hurting my brain.
It doesn't make any sense at all. I see some people in the chat saying, like, very few of them saying, though, "Oh, y'all must be slow as hell not to get this." Well, please explain to us what we're supposed to be getting, because I'm sitting here rereading it while Matthew's talking. I'm hardly even listening to what he's saying because I'm trying to figure out some way to make this make sense, and I cannot figure out how to make that make sense. There's no way that it makes sense, because the way that this, if we do that, let's see, sir, Iran wants to open up the strait immediately. So that suggests that the Iranians want to end their blockade, and we also end our blockade, and everything's all good that is good. But if we do that, there can never be a deal with Iran, which then suggests that we can't open up the Strait of Hormuz unless if we blow up their country, and then underscore including their leaders, which is like a secondary objective to just blowing up the country in general. I'm just not understanding. Like, this doesn't make any sense.
This is a perfect opportunity for the people. This is a perfect opportunity right here for people that are like, blind political supporters to simply say, "Oh, see, you guys are too dumb to even understand it. This is 4D chess. This is 5D chess right here. This is why you don't understand."
This is 9-dimensional chess.
I will admit, this right here is above my comprehension, but I don't think it's at anybody's comprehension level. I think it's only unique to one person, and that doesn't really work with many people.
Yeah, I just don't get it. Also, I saw Bobby say Iran wants to charge a fee. That's why they want to open. Well, I mean, but then at the same time, though, that's not really the case, because they want it open, sure, but then they also want to only allow certain ships through that they ideologically agree with nationally, and then they'll make them pay a toll anyways, and then they don't want any U.S. or Israeli ships getting out. So their quote-unquote strait is open from the Iranian end is very conditional, and it's not even really about profit-making. It's like part profit-making and then part punishment on the U.S. So... like, that doesn't really mean that they want it open. I mean, like, kind of open for their guys, and then they have to pay, but then we still can't get through, and so then it's still largely closed as far as we're concerned.
Yeah. Also, by the way, like I see someone said, "I'm going to sue you guys for losing my brain cells." Yeah, sorry, but you can't sue for that. But I mean, if you want to take it up with somebody, I mean, don't take it up with us. I mean, we're just reading off the statement. So I mean, I go out to call this one a wash, because I think if you like put this in front of anybody's face and said, "What do you make of this?" I think most people are going to be like, "I don't understand what the hell this is saying," and I don't think it really actually makes sense. So yeah, I think we'll call this one a wash.
Yeah, I think so. I'm sorry, folks. Whenever I see something, I try and make sense of it, because that's kind of our job, is to try and make sense of something and then explain it or give a larger picture. That one, I think that just stumped us for like a good 6 minutes, and we're still where we were when we started. So moving us on from that, it is time for us to move on and into the last question of this segment. And I also just saw someone say, are you guys really that dumb? It's like, I find that interesting how people keep saying that in the chat, because nobody at all can explain this. Like
They're
literally,
trolling.
I know, but it's so funny to me because it's like nobody can actually explain it, and then they're like, "Are you stupid? Do you not understand it?" And then it's like you ask them, "Okay, well, what does it mean?" They don't even know what it means. They're just saying that to say it. But anyways, with that, we're on to the last question of the segment, and then we're going to be moving on and into the rest of the news from around the world.
All right, and our last one here before we get back to our big news of the night, we have a 50 from Nick Hines. And thank you very much, Nick, for that $50 support. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And he said, hit the like button, folks. And with the oil shortage hitting Western European airlines due to a lack of jet fuel, would it make sense for Russia to attack Europe?
In some sense, it might, but civil aviation is not necessarily important for wartime activities, as most of those aviation companies would mostly be grounded due to the airspace no longer being safe in Europe to operate. So it's not necessarily important. What would be key for the Russians to conduct a war against Europe is that they hear that they're completely out of jet fuel, even for their air forces. Then that would be an optimal time to attack because Europe wouldn't have its superior air power to work with to be able to defend itself and then also conduct counterattacks. So I would generally say it probably would be a little bit longer. They probably need some critical information out of the inside of one of those governments or several of those governments to get an idea that they've run out of jet fuel for civil and military aviation. And once they found that out, then that's probably when they would launch a war. But if the civil aviation side of things is grinding to a halt, that doesn't necessarily mean that their air forces would be paralyzed and unable to respond due to a lack of fuel as well. Because generally most countries always plan for that eventuality if in the hypothetical scenario that they start running out of fuel, and they always make sure to keep some level of a strategic reserve of usable jet fuel or aviation grade jet fuel for their air forces to continue operations for a defined amount of time, usually somewhere around 6 months to a year, off of a ration consumption. So that would generally be what they would be working off of on their analysis. And if they saw that that had run out, then they would go to war. But like that would be a key time to go to war because Europe would be pretty crippled at that point to be able to defend itself. So I thank you so much for the support, Nick, and I hope that does answer that question well. And I gotta say that's amazing and incredible thing for you folks to support this channel. I gotta thank you all so much because, as we say sometimes from time to time, this channel is an ad-free and sponsor-free show, and I gotta say that we are incredibly appreciative and very grateful for all of our super chatters, because y'all help this channel to keep possible for Matthew and me, for us to have a job every single day to go to, and to keep our lights on to be able to pay our bills, and it also allows for the millions of people who watch this channel every single month to have a channel to come to. So a humongous thanks to all of y'all so much once again, and we haven't gotten to your super chat yet. We will be getting to it after the rest of our news. So moving us on back into the Middle East, we did get to see that there was an explosion today within the city of Rasht, near to the coastline of the Islamic Republic of Iran, near to the Caspian Sea. That's the explosion right there, fairly small one. We can't show the actual video. Moving us on out of that, we also were able to hear that Saudi Arabia announced today that they had made an assessment on prior Iranian attacks, and according to at least one Saudi assessment, up to half of the nearly 1,000 drone attacks that that targeted Saudi Arabia during the 5 weeks of fighting with Iran came from inside of Iraq, a person familiar stated to the Wall Street Journal. So quite an interesting development there. So it appears that out of 1,000 drones, apparently 500 of them were launched from inside of Iraq. That is pretty wild, actually, and that's showing that a lot of the Iranian-supported proxy groups in Iraq, like the Al-Nusra, apparently have some significant drone forces under their belts to be able to levy, because that suggests that they had as much firepower as the mainland Iranians in the IRGC and the Iranian armed forces, which is pretty wild to hear. Additionally, we also were able to see that the Israelis have announced to their Air Force that they need to be ready to work longer hours without overtime, adding that we don't know how much time we've got if war starts again. We've also seen as well that the U.S. ambassador to Israel has been recalled to Washington, D.C., and has been told to urgently return for consultations, which generally is probably a cover for this ambassador to return to the United States, so that way they're not in the line of fire if the shooting war starts again. We've also additionally seen our current carrier disposition in the world, provided by Ian Ellis, a great provider of open source intelligence on the U.S. Navy. And here is the current lay of the land for our carrier strike groups. Currently, 4 of them are laid up for refits and refurbishments. That would include the USS Ronald Reagan, the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, the John C. Stennis, and the Harry S. Truman. Right now, we have the Gerald R. Ford and the Abraham Lincoln currently within the area of CENTCOM's area of responsibility, and the George H.W. Bush is making its way around the southern tip of Africa to be able to get back towards the area of CENTCOM and to join in the active combat operations or the future combat operations that are to follow. Other aircraft carriers that are active right now would be the USS George Washington in Japan and also the USS Carl Vinson, which currently do not have any deployments or orders, but they are available and on standby. We also understand that the USS Theodore Roosevelt and the USS Nimitz are currently involved in training operations. That is currently the entire carrier disposition, not including the Iwo Jima and the Boxer, which we understand that the Iwo Jima is currently somewhere within the Caribbean, supporting U.S. operations within that area. The USS Tripoli with the 11th MEU on board is currently, well, actually the 31st MEU, correction, is currently within the area of the Indian Ocean, and the USS Boxer with the 11th MEU on board is currently making its way into the area of CENTCOM. That's just to speak of the LHDs that we were able to see on this infographic. Right now, out of all of the carriers in the United States Navy, which counts about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Out of about the 11 carriers that we have in operation, 4 of them are not available. Actually, 6 of them technically are not available, either due to training or due to being under repairs and refits. That means that right now, only about somewhere around 40% of all of the U.S.'s aircraft carriers are operational for combat service. And you know something that's a little bit interesting, folks, is that I had to do a little bit of a deep dive to figure out something a little bit interesting, because a lot of people have been telling me, a lot of people have been saying in the chat, that Britain doesn't have a navy because 50% of it is is out of service for repairs, refits, and training. So I had to do a little bit of digging, folks, to find this one today, but according to the United States Navy, at most any given time, the United States only has about 30% of the Navy available for combat operations, because the other 70% or so of it is undergoing training or it's being repaired and refitted. So if we're working off of that metric, the British are actually not doing that bad, having 50% of their Navy operational at any given moment that is not undergoing training or is undergoing refit and repair. As a matter of fact, as far as our carrier strike groups are concerned, more of their Navy per capita is available for operations than the carrier strike groups of the U.S. Navy by a percentage. And I just wanted to make sure to put that out there. And I saw someone say our Navy is 20 times bigger. It doesn't matter, because if you're talking about statistical percentages, it just matters the percentage. So you could have 1,000 ships, and 10% of those are operational, which means you have 100 ships at sea. Or you could have 100 ships, and 70% of those are operational, and that means that you have 70 ships that are available to be put out to sea. Still, on the percentage side of things, that's more important than saying, well, there's more of them available, because the United States of America is also covering a lot more ground than just a single region like Britain would. Britain sometimes has some expeditionary forces like their carrier strike groups, but they're mostly a regional navy for regional defense and offense, meaning that it's around their island, or their islands more so. And so for that reason, they don't need a navy that's as large as the United States. So a little bit interesting with that one, and I think that might be showing some folks out there how some misinformation goes around to make our allies sound weak, when really, if anything, they're on par with us, or statistically, they might even be doing a little bit better than us at having their ships underway at sea. But moving us on out of that, it is time for us to get on over and into the United States of America, speaking of which. We did get some developments out of the Pentagon today. We did get to see that the peace reports are showing higher traffic, which is showing that there are sustained overtimes being conducted by DoD personnel within the Pentagon, which is suggesting that they're still planning that a war might be on within the Middle East, and they have to have an all-hands-on-deck situation 24/7 at the Pentagon as a result. We also were able to hear...
Why don't they vary it up a little bit? Why don't they eat something different than just pizza all the time? Like they could get something like hot wings or something, or a little bit different. It's like, just eating the constant pizza. It's like, come on, that's a big tell.
Man, it really is. Hey, man, it really is, honestly. We also understand that the A-10 Warthog, or the Thunderbolt II, For many of you A-10 lovers out there, you're going to love this. The Air Force is given a stay of execution for the A-10, and instead of it being retired here by 2027, it's now been extended in its service life until 2030. And so the A-10 will be around.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the A-10 will be around for just a little bit longer before they start to phase all of them out for their replacements, which are the F-35s. Honestly, though, I mean, like, the F-35 is a pretty decent platform. You know, you're going from strength to strength there. But moving us on out of that, we've also been able to hear that the United States of America has announced, or more so the president, has signed an executive order invoking the Defense Production Act amid the rising energy crisis. The order directs federal resources towards boosting production of petroleum, liquefied natural gas, coal, and power grid infrastructure. So it does appear that we're going to be trying to do our best to alleviate the rising costs and the lack of available supply globally here within the United States. But as to whether or not the effect of that, we'll have to see how that's executed here in the next several months. We've also heard that the White House has apparently convened some of the core national security team members at the White House this afternoon to discuss the path forward on Iran. The president extending the ceasefire was a result of the meeting, at least according to Hugo Lowell on Twitter. Some of the members that were involved in these talks was the Vice President Vance, the Secretary of State Rubio, the Secretary of Defense Hegseth, and also the Joint Chiefs of Staff Kane, who attended the meeting. Apparently, we understand that some others were not included, according to persons who were familiar with the matters at hand in Washington. We also saw that there was some interesting air training developments within the United States, showing that several E-4 Doomsday aircraft were apparently flying somewhere over the Midwest of the United States in a possible training flight. This is also giving us an idea that the Doomsday aircraft and the broadcast that we may have been hearing over the past several days, which we reported intermittently here on this channel, may have been a part of larger training exercises involving the E-4 Doomsday aircraft, showing that the United States of America is ensuring its nuclear readiness doctrine is still at 100% efficacy, as these aircraft are crucial in making sure that the United States strategic nuclear arm and even tactical nuclear arms are able to respond accordingly to any sort of nuclear threats that are posed by any enemy nations, including the People's Republic of China, North Korea, and also the Russian Federation, to name the ones that are nuclear armed at the moment. Moving us on out of the United States of America, we've also seen that crisis is starting to hit the civil aviation of the European Union, as the major air carrier Lufthansa has had to cut 20,000 flights, according to Financial Times, to save fuel as the prices are soaring. This could also see that many airlines start to suffer significant amounts of financial strain due to the rising cost of fuel and also their decreased availability to conduct flights, with their prices ticket-wise largely remaining the same for now, meaning that they're going to be pinched on the flights that they will still be able to conduct because the amount of profits they'll be making per fare, per passenger, will generally be somewhat lower. We've also been able to hear that the U.S. airbridge is still conducting flights into CENTCOM at this moment through Europe, as a significant amount of C-5 Galaxies and C-17s have been seen conducting these flights over the day, and we've also seen that an additional 2 KC-135 Stratotankers also transited into CENTCOM's area of responsibility today. Moving us on out of all of this, it's now time for us to finally start getting close to the area of Eastern Europe, as we have seen some pretty interesting developments within this area. Today, in the Baltic Sea, the Swedes intercepted a Russian flight that was being conducted within the area, which included 2 Tu-22 M3s over the Baltic Sea. Now, you know, I've got to give you a little bit of an interesting fact here on the Tu-22. The Tu-22 has gone under a lot of modifications in its pretty lengthy life. This is what they look like, and they're called the... I know, like they're rough. But, you know, they looked a lot rougher, Matthew, when they were originally put into service. Do you want to see what they looked like back then?
Yeah, let's see it. I know what it looks like. Well, let's see the picture. Let's see it. Oh, yeah. Look at that. And who intercepted this, you said? You said it was the Swedes?
The Swedes and the French. We're about to get to the French here in a second.
What are they going to do, fire a meatball at it?
Oh, man, you're going to get the Swedish people angry.
I'm joking,
like,
by the
you're
way.
going to get so angry.
Listen, the Swedes, they have a sense of humor that's unrivaled. They tell me, sir, those Swedes, they know their jokes. And I'm trusting in that. I'm trusting that they know their jokes.
You know, honestly, the Swedes are really, really nice folks. Amazing folks. But you know, Matthew, what's the most interesting thing about the first iteration of the Tu-22 is its air conditioning system. You know why?
Why?
The coolant that operated the air conditioning system in the original Tu-22s was vodka. So loads of air crews would actually siphon, like crackheads, the vodka out of the coolant system of the air conditioner on this plane, and they would store it in jugs that they would literally bring with them. And once their training flight was over, which they would literally cook through because they had no working air conditioning, they would then get out. Also, by the way, if y'all are wondering, why didn't they siphon the stuff before, after they conducted their flight, so that way they weren't boiling? Well, the reason why is because the vodka actually evaporates over the flight and is also used in the coolant system, which also leads to increased evaporation. So they would want to try and get as much of it as they could. So they would literally siphon the stuff out before the flights even began. So after they ended up sizzling in this thing during the whole training flight, and then they would land them, they would take their jugs of vodka out of the aircraft, and then they would go home. And the reason why this was considered a big thing back in Soviet times is because currency wasn't issued a lot, the kopecks, by the Soviet government. So usually the barter system was the king during those times, and vodka was one of the best things to bribe people with. So these pilots, if they were put on this bomber, would be able to bribe college admission boards into allowing their children into better universities by giving them the vodka. They would be able to buy better consumer goods whenever they were available. They might be able to bribe some government officials into making sure that they're first on the list for certain forms of travel passports and IDs with the vodka that they got from this thing. So for a while, this was actually the premier aircraft to get issued in the Soviet Union as a pilot, is because of your unlimited supply of vodka, because it used it in the air conditioning system.
I'm assuming they weren't flying, sauced, I would assume. Like, were they
Oh,
flying
no.
sauced, or were they just taking it with them?
No, they would just take it. Well, some of them did get sauced, but that was very rare. Usually they would just like save it so that way they could use it as bartering for later. Basically, it was like liquid money basically for them. So they wouldn't really drink it, and they really wouldn't do anything with it for the most part. They would just siphon it out, put it in the jugs, and then keep it at home until they needed to bribe someone.
Interesting. That sounds very Ruski. That sounds Soviet.
Yeah, it sounds really Soviet. And also, someone said that thing looks ancient. You're right, Dagobah, because that thing was put into service in 1962, which is a forever ago. That is 60 years ago at this point. This thing is extremely ancient by modern standards. And what's crazy is that it's still technically flying in this variant, because this is the multiple rebuilds that they did to make this thing somewhat acceptable. Because I also forgot to tell y'all, the original Tu-22 actually vibrated so much in flight that some of them would literally just rip themselves apart. Forgot to mention that, and it would kill all the air crews and everything. Really tragedy, but if they survived the flights, and they got the vodka, they were loaded. But they finally fixed the vibration issues and all that stuff by the Tu-22 M3 variant, which is the variant that has existed up until this day. It's very interesting to hear that they intercepted these. And, a lot of people would say, well, the Swedes might just be, inflating stuff and coming up with fake news. Well, that's until we get to the French part of the story, because the French put the camera on Rafale onto both the Tu-22 M3s and their Su-27 and Su-30 escorts, and we got literal ultra 4K HD footage of all of the aircraft that were intercepted today by the French and the Swedes. So here are both of them. And I mean, the French are literally putting in the ultra zoom on the Su-27. I mean, they're basically reading off the serial number on the vertical stabilizer at this point. Pretty wild kind of footage, honestly, that this Rafale is able to get. But still showing us that they were successfully intercepted by the French and the Swedes in the area today, which is generally a mix of the Gripens and the Rafales of the French Air Force converging to be able to try and escort these aircraft away from NATO airspace around the Kaliningrad exclave. But moving us on out of all of that, it is time for us to move on and into Belarus, because it's time for our crazy statement of the day. Lukashenko stated today something that is absolutely crazy. So, on Sunday, Lukashenko stated he ain't no bitch, just said it out of the blue. Also, by the way, we have to break for a moment because we actually have some breaking news coming out right now. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right. So I kid you not, another Truth Social post has come out about Iran. But also, by the way, let's see here. Let me check. There's been a lot of posts happening. So the one we read off earlier that was kind of inducing a stroke a little bit in my head, so that one was 3 hours ago. So now we just got another one 1 minute ago. It says, Iran is collapsing financially. They want the Strait of Hormuz open immediately, starving for cash, losing $500 million a day, military and police complaining that they're not getting paid, SOS. So there's really not much to say about that. I mean, it sounds like a rewording. Like maybe he realized his last post didn't make any damn sense at all, so he like rewrote it in a real simple way, I guess this time. So yeah, there's not much to say, but that's the breaking news.
Man, they're really starving for that strait to be open. That's why they're saying that it'll stay closed and they're going to keep on inflicting massive damage on us. It really makes sense. Like, it makes so much sense. They want it open so badly, they just won't agree to open it with us, which would be the easiest way to open it right now. But then again, if they agree to open it, then we got to bomb them all for some reason.
Yeah, that right there, I think that's taking it too far. Like, the U.S., I mean, he's been trying to spin the situation to turn it into a win somehow. This is going too far. Like, not a soul is going to take that and run with it. Like, not even, political people are going to be able to run with that one because, I mean, we've all known that Iran was the ones that closed the strait. So now trying to turn it into, well, the U.S. is the ones that closed it. Now Iran's at our mercy. Nobody's buying that bullshit. It's like, that's just pure bullshit. And I'm like, if he thinks people are going to buy that, I mean, come on. I mean, that's like insulting everybody's intelligence at this point.
Hello, everyone. It is the doctor here, and it's time for me to give you all a little bit of medicine. It wasn't the Iranians that closed the strait in the first days of the war. It was actually me. I closed it. I was such a genius. They said, sir, please reopen it. I said, no. While we're going to run out of oil, y'all are going to get really hurt. The police are not going to get paid because for some reason they get paid by ships going through the Hormuz. But outside of that...
Exactly. They don't even get paid by the money going through the street. And also, by the way, Iran's collecting a $2 million toll on this ship. So if anything, they're making more money than they started with.
I don't get it, man. It's like it's like, the national police, like on their employment contract, it says y'all will get paid bi-weekly depending on how many ships go through the Hormuz. Like it's like by commission. So with each ship that makes it through the Hormuz, some dude in some backwater town in Iran gets his pay. And it's like depending on the number of ships that goes through.
Can somebody go back and go grab like his other post where he was like, open the strait, you crazy bastards. It's like, go grab that one and then be like 2 hours later. And then it says, Iran's begging us to open the strait. They're begging. It's like, this is crazy. This is getting into crazy territory here. It's like, this is stupid. Like it's really getting like really stupid.
Man, I just don't even know what to make of it anymore. But getting us back into our news that we have been able to hear today that is not mind-warping. Lukashenko threatened to use the entire arsenal of defense in Belarus, including nuclear weapons, which they technically don't have and they shouldn't have because that'd be a violation of the non-proliferation treaty. So it's still kind of up in the air as to whether they actually control him or not. If neighboring states attack his country, Lukashenko has warned his neighbors about possible consequences if they, in his opinion, resort to aggressive actions against Belarus. Potato Head then stated, "My task is to warn my neighbors, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland, and perhaps to some extent Ukraine. May God forbid them from committing aggression against Belarus." You're right, Fifi. Woof, woof. That's right. And that was according to him today. So I don't know what's up with him. He stated on Sunday he's no bitch. Now he's stating today he'll nuke people. I guess he's just starved for attention or something. I don't know. Maybe Putin isn't,
Who's Fifi?
The little dog. Remember, he's got that little dog that he brings around everywhere.
Oh yeah. I remember now. I was about to say, it's like somebody was barking like a dog. I thought you were trying to say Lukashenko was Fifi and like he was barking for Putin or something.
Man, he needs to be sweating under that little apple orchard again with Putin. Like, like with Putin, like putting his hand on his stomach or something again. Like, apparently he's starved for attention right now. And so he's putting out all these statements hoping that someone will pay attention to him somewhere. Because apparently Putin just doesn't tend to him like he used to him. We're really unfortunate with that. But moving us on from that whole thing in Belarus, we also got some news out of the Russian Federation today. And according to some statements that we've been able to hear, they've been losing money. As according to Zelensky, in March alone, Russia's oil revenue losses from our long-range capabilities are estimated at no less than $2.3 billion in just 1 month. That's a good amount of money. I mean, especially for the Russian oil industry, that's actually a pretty decent amount of losses. Additionally, we also got to hear that Putin stated today in a meeting with the public in a press release that he is expanding the security zone along the border with Ukraine. And according to him, the process will continue until the threats to the Russian border regions are eliminated. He did say that in the statement. Moving us on from that and on into the area of the Volga River, the Ukrainians have also conducted a major drone attack overnight against the Russian Federation inside of the Volga River regions and also within the southeast of the Russian Federation near to the Don. We did get to see that within the area of Samara, something tragic happened. The Samara pumping station is out of action because the Ukrainians blew it up. According to the governor of Samara, who issued this on what appears to be Telegram, which is kind of interesting because I thought that was banned in Russia. But dear residents, tonight the enemy's armed forces of Ukraine attempted another attack on an industrial enterprise in the Samara region. According to preliminary data, there were no deaths or injuries. Operational services are working at the crash sites of the drones. In case of finding fragments of drones, call 112. Approaching them is dangerous for life. So apparently, it's only dangerous for life. Not 20 years.
Feels like a prison sentence.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to. And I was like, apparently not 20 years. So you can get dangerous for 20 years, and that's fine. But dangerous for life, that's pretty significant. We did also get to hear additional confirmation that this pumping station has been hit, which is one of the pumping stations along this key pipeline that provides oil to the port of Tuapse to be able to be shipped out into the greater world for Russia to turn a dollar. We also saw that Tuapse and Novokubashevsk oil refineries have stopped operations after Ukrainian drone strikes damaged the key units inside of the oil refineries and the port infrastructure, and we also saw that the Sizran refinery was hit today as well, and we were able to confirm that in this clip. Do you hear that air defense fire?
Rumor has it they're going to rename it the Sizzlin refinery.
Man, that was a pretty good one.
Holy crap. They're unleashing on that damn thing. They are like letting loose on every gun in the town on whatever's flying in.
They said, quick, open fire! Like, and every single person in the town of Sizran tried to give it their best shot. Apparently it didn't work. It did hit the refinery from what we've heard, and that refinery is currently out of action as a result. Moving us on down and into the areas of the southern regions of the Russian Federation, we have also seen that around the Rostov area, there were some significant attacks that were conducted. Let us observe. Slower. Oh, you hear a radio. We hear a drone.
Ну ебашьте парни, бля. О, полетел. Ебать, поехала.
Oh, and we see the air defense fire.
Oh.
Oh! Man, that'll lighten it up.
They must be firing birds. I'm hearing squeaking.
Man, like there's a bird getting lit up there. Oh, you hear another one coming close. Oh, and a direct hit.
Oh.
Oh, and another. Oh my God.
Oh. Now let me ask you something, people. Let me ask you something. Serious question here. Why do you think these drones made it to their targets? Because they have so much air defense fire going on here. There's only one problem. Why do you think they did not hit the target?
Why?
Because they apparently can't aim worth a shit because they're literally firing everywhere but the drone. Like, notice the air defense fire is going every which direction. Like, there's no like specific area that they're honing in on. They're just firing everywhere. Like, it's going every possible direction. Like, they don't even know what they're firing yet.
Man, let me go get something really quickly. The Russians be like, incoming. They'd be like, where, блядь? Oh, hold up, let me get this down here so that way I can get the joke. Where is it, блядь? Oh my God! Like it just started lighting up like a crow or something like that. Oh my God,
man,
dude.
The American crow.
Dude, I bet you that's how they actually direct their air defense fire, is that somebody's squinting their eyes into the pitch black, and they just kind of see something moving around a little bit. It could be anything. It's probably birds. And then they just start lighting up birds with the machine guns, thinking that that's the drone.
That's got to be something like it. Like, I wonder what they're using, like, for their optics on these things. Is it just simply, like, iron sights on the gun, or what is it? Because, I mean, they're not aiming worth the crap.
It's a blend. It actually depends on the air defense unit, because it's not uniform across the board. Some of them have iron sights. Some of them actually have reflex sights. Very rarely do we see them with thermals. And most of those are like around Moscow and St. Petersburg and stuff, which gives them a little bit of a better idea of where they're shooting. But most of them do not have any form of night vision or thermals.
Interesting. Also, by the way, I'm trying to check something real quick. I'm seeing someone say that there might be a Belarusian government flight going through Pakistan. Yeah, there is actually. Let's see here. It came from Turkmenistan, and it's apparently going somewhere in Pakistan, from the looks of it. So, yeah, I don't know what this is up with. Also, let me shout out the viewer that told me that, Emily B, for letting me know about that. We don't know what this aircraft is doing here. It could be, is it en route to Islamabad or is it going past it? I think it's way past Islamabad, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's way past. It's like going down towards like Karachi or Oman or something.
Yeah, who knows what it's doing there, but it looks like it went over possibly Afghanistan. Is the transponder on though? Because it looks like a lot of the flight path is predictive.
Yeah, it looks like it's predictive, like it's on in some places, but generally not.
Interesting. So yeah, unfortunately, we don't know what this aircraft is doing. It also does not show a destination which it's going to. So we'll have to keep an eye on it and see if we can see anywhere it lands at. But that is fascinating. I'm not really sure what it's doing there. It's in literally a very hot area of the world right now. Not a good place for Belarus to be hanging out. So we'll have to see where they're going.
Meanwhile, over here in this area, we can see that the Turks just sent up a Bayraktar just because. We also see that the Greeks have a Spartan airborne, and down here in the Middle East, there's really not a lot going on right now. Oh, wait a minute. An unknown nation, A330 Voyagers down here, might be British, and then also U.S. Air Force C-17. So not really a whole lot going on right now in most places. Rather than that, let's see, what's going on here in America? Oh, a whole bunch of stuff. Nothing over Utah, though. Really nothing over this whole area right here. That's interesting.
Nothing on ADSB at least.
Ooh, it's a UFO. Oh, like it's, oh no, please, man. But I mean, honestly, there's a lot of stuff that goes on out here, folks. We see like in the daylight hours, we see a million Army helicopters every day in Salt Lake because they have a Army airfield in the middle of the city, basically. But weirdly enough, you just don't really see a lot of activity on Flight Radar 24. Also, by the way, this is the field that they're at. You can actually see them right there. Pretty cool. There's also some Apaches here too, and they have the newer ones, the H-64Es, which are really neat.
The president's made another True Social post about Iran.
Really?
I'm not joking. I mean, in a second here, I'm just going to stop reporting on them. It's getting crazy. Like he is tweeting like wild right now. Like he is putting out like here's a post from 2 minutes ago. Here's a post from 1 minute ago. Here's a post from 1 minute ago. I mean, so he put out. He apparently screenshotted somebody else's tweet that said the president's been preparing for the war in Iran for over 40 years. Okay, all right. We'll just leave that one be.
I've been preparing for this since 1986.
Bro was building buildings, and he was like, "I'm getting ready for that war."
Man, he was sitting there going, yeah, this Trump casino's looking really nice. Anyways, about Iran. Like, we need to talk about that because it's definitely going to have a lot to do with my golf courses and casinos, obviously. But anyways,
I think, like seriously, folks. I'm seeing some people saying, what's going on? Like, why is he tweeting so rapidly and stuff like this? I think he realizes he's coming up to another decision point. They got to decide, like tomorrow when the ceasefire is over with, are they going to start attacking Iran again? Are they going to try to keep engaging in talks that Iran's refusing to engage in, or what they're going to do? Because right now it's not going good. Like, and this isn't trying to get political, but his approval rating's not looking too good right now. I think he knows that, and he's trying to find a way out of the situation, an exit ramp, which I understand. Like, I think we all want an exit ramp out of this at this point, but the problem is, though, there really isn't an exit ramp. The only way to go forward is to simply keep plowing through the Iranian government and keep on trying to win the war. That's the only way forward at this point. So I think that's why he's doing this right now. Honestly, it might be part nerves. The nerves might be getting to him, or he might just be getting possibly anxious. Maybe it's hard to tell, but there's clearly something going on. It's very late at night, and he's on here posting nonstop.
yeah, it's certainly something. That's for sure. I saw someone say, well, he's been talking about it for 40 years. Yeah, but according to like a lot of people who watch this show, I talk about what I'd want to do, and then people say I don't know what I'm talking about, and technically he wouldn't know what he's talking about either. He was like a construction guy and a real estate guy, and he wasn't even in politics at all back then, or even close to it. So, like talking about it and then planning. Like, also, how in the world was he supposed to plan this out 40 years ago? Like, Khamenei is going to be in this room on the 28th of February of 2026. Like, how, like, you can't even actually, like, in the literal sense, plan 40 years ahead of something, because you just don't really know what it's going to look like by then to even be able to do anything. Like, like a real military plan is like, it's drawn up like from a several year basis, and then it's all the fine details are then added in the about half year leading up to something, or the months leading up to something. Like, you can't plan like the war as it happened right now 40 years ago. On top of that, Iran's military capabilities were completely different 40 years ago. So, I mean, take that for what it is. But it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But anyways, with that, moving us back into the attacks in the Rostov region. Oh, I can hear another.
Бля, что за вечер сегодня? Пацаны, я без отпуска, походу, бля.
Oh, we hear a little bit of machine gun fire. They're still coming in. Yeah, like they're going crazy behind this camera.
Our town's getting shredded apart. Yeah.
Говорят, как мы не подходим, так же мало.
Man, we hear the air raid sirens finally going off in the distance. The lawnmower coming in hot and heavy. Oh, you see some more air defense fire. Oh, the air defense fire is lighting up again.
Oh my God.
Oh,
bro, are they firing from the top of their building?
Oh my God, bro.
What the hell, bro? There's somebody with a gat on top of the building.
Bro, they got a guy with a disco on top of the duplex.
Bro, it's like, is that dude firing out of their like top floor window or something? Like, what's up with this? Or he's on top of the roof, one or the other.
I think he's probably on the roof, but that's insane, dude. These bullets are literally cracking over the cameraman's head. Oh, wait. Now we got some guy with the green tracers from his Glock, just shooting randomly. Look at it. It sounds semi-auto.
Damn.
This guy's shooting at the moon.
Thing down there. Like you said, ricochet. There was like some tracer down there that like ricocheted all of a sudden and started spiraling around. Do you see that?
Bro, what the hell was that? Bro,
look at that.
I call this one the curveball blade. What the hell?
Look at that. It's a tracer, I think. I've never seen a tracer do that. It's like very fascinating.
Bro, someone put some spin on that tracer, bro. They say curveball blade. Oh my God.
Бля, почему не целятся?
Man, even in Russia, the bullets don't fly straight. Like, they do like a whole loop and everything. That's crazy.
I think they'd have been better off saving their ammo and saving their money because they didn't hit a damn thing.
Man, here comes another. You can hear another coming in at the end of the video. But moving us on out of that, we got a little bit of additional details of some of the attacks that happened in this area. For one, it appears that an army depot of some sort has been hit, as a hit was recorded during a drone attack last night, according to Raging 545, on the home base of the Russian 22,179th military unit of the 150th Motorized Rifle Division in Persianovsky. Analysis shows the armored vehicle storage park on the base received a direct hit. Moving us on into the additional evidence and proof that we have of all of this, we did get to see some additional footage of all this going down.
Юля, зайди.
Oh my
Юля,
God!
зайди, говорю. Это трассера. О, пошел.
Pull up, bubble yet!
Летит. Это вон,
Oh my
видишь,
God.
Ты слышишь, летит, да, летит.
Unleashing.
Oh! Ooh!
Oh! Dang.
Well, that's gotta be,
Dang, man. They didn't even hit the thing. They didn't even come close to hitting it.
man, they missing every time. Like they can't hit shit.
Отойди от окон те.
Oh, wow, that thing kind of spawned in right there, man. He said, "I killed the dead," and then he heard, Bro, it's like, where did that one come from?
Еще один, сука.
Oh, there's a lot of them up there. You can hear several of them. And now the air defense fire starts again.
Oh,
Missing
all the
everything.
Ukrainian drones in
Я
harmony.
охренел, какой
Oh my god! Oh!
Еще один.
Oh,
Ебать.
damn. Man, I think Russia kind of got kind of pounded. I think in every video we're seeing.
I think they got rinsed. like they didn't stand a chance on this one. We also got to see one last clip of this, folks, which is also of the same attack. So here is the last angle of footage that we have from this attack.
Меняюсь.
This guy's quite loud. Oh! There was one hit.
И не говори.
Like I said, don't even mention it. What is he, the FSB? Like, don't even mention it. Like, we're not going to mention this to anybody, Blair. Oh! Опа!
Чё там? О, летит.
It's fluing.
Bro, that's that technical
Bro.
military speak. It's fluent.
Man, look at the drone. It's fluing over our heads.
And now we can hear Prapor in the background from Escape from Tarkov. Like, bro. Now they walk back a little.
Got the Adidas.
Oh!
Holy moly. Bro, they're freaking out. Bro, damn. It was like hell was burning over, man. Look at that. Look at that. The whole sky is full.
Oh my god, bro. We went from the last clip, which was kind of mild, to this one, which started off with pure chaos, bro.
Ебать, давай уёбан нахуй в пизду, блядь! Я ебал! Нихуя себе! Тебе, блядь! Ты в порядке?
Bro.
Сука, блядь!
Holy
Oh my god, this guy is losing it. Oh my god. You know, I
Bro,
usually...
do you see the sky though? I mean, the whole sky is full of munitions. Like, there's not a spot in the sky that didn't have some munition, and that was actually legit crazy.
Bro, this guy's losing it like over that.
Сука, блядь! Ебать!
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Bro, I'm about to choke up a lung from laughing at this stuff. Like, this is insane.
Нахуй! Росик, ты где? Блядь!
And he's calling out for his mommy.
Ебаный в рот! Ебать!
Man, I'm not gonna lie, like, valid crash out for the Ruski on this one right here, because that actually was insane.
Man, that was nuts. Like, that shit was insane.
Вон там нахуй только что ёбнуло, пацаны! Да, горит теперь пиздак!
And there's
I don't
this
try to
little-
act tough now. He's just screaming like a little girl just a minute ago. It's like, don't start. He's gonna get all like, oh yeah, look over there in the distance. It's on fire. It's like, no, you're just screaming a minute ago. Come on.
Okay, we're gonna have to go back to this because this whole thing was gold.
Ебать, давай уёбан нахуй в пизду, блядь! Я ебал! Нихуя себе! Тебе, блядь! Ты в порядке? Я в порядке, конечно! Сука, блядь! Ебать! Нахуй! Русик, ты где? Блядь!
Bro, this is the stuff of legend right here.
Bro, he said, someone asked him, "Are you okay?" He said, "I'm fine." And he started like going into a complete breakdown.
Bro, dude, he started realizing the situation he was in. He was like, they were like, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine." Oh my god, bro, he like started freaking out even more. Oh my god, that was something else right there. But from what we understand, there was some significant damage caused to the Russian military facilities within the area of Novocherkassk and also Prisianovsky, which is just to the northeast of Rostov-on-Don. The videos did show that the motor pool had been hit, and a couple of other key areas of the facility had also been hit as well, which is suggesting that at least at the moment, the Southern Military District may be seeing a lack of responsiveness and also the ability to deploy reinforcements from that specific facility of the 2,179th unit, and whatever division that technically was. But moving us on out of that whole deal, we also get to see that Tuops is still on fire, and I mean, like, on fire.
Oh my god. I heard it was raining oil in the city too. I seen the oil was raining down. It was getting on people's cars. They were like wiping off their skin and stuff. Like, if free crude oil is very expensive these days.
Man, the Russians are looking at that going, "Oh no!" Man, it's like Dude, that's like back in the day during like COVID, the price of lumber. You remember how insane that got at that point? Like this is kind of like the same thing in the modern day, but instead of lumber, it's oil.
Yeah, pretty much. Time to get the squeegee out and start mopping it up. That's money.
Man, some Russian's gonna be out there with like a leaf blower in a jar, like trying to get as much of it as he can. Oh my lord!
I think it's all crude in the smoke clouds, but look how it's like barely moving. It's like very thick and heavy.
Man, just like Ukraine's attacks on Russia, thick and heavy. Moving us on from that, we also got this other clip right here showing the fires raging. Good God. Like, damn, that's pretty bad. So we do understand that Tuap's port is pretty knocked out at this point. From what we can tell, it's probably going to be knocked out for a couple of weeks or months at this point with the damage that's been caused. So moving us on out of the Tuap's area, it's now time for us to move on up and into the actual war in Ukraine. But before we do, folks, we have amazing news. Russia has finally captured the Luhansk Oblast for the fifth time. The fifth time. That's all we have to report. Like that's
Bro,
all we have.
Is that Gerasimov at the door?
No, that's actually his Madame Tussauds wax figure. Like that is not him, bro. That's not him.
Not look like that guy does not even look like he's really present. Real? Are you sure it's not him?
That's him, actually. That is him. Like
oh, that is him. Yeah. Like, my goodness, man. This dude looks like he's been drained of all his, like, red blood cells or something. Why is his face so pale, man? He looks like he's a walking dead.
Bro, he's about to sit down on that little step ladder on the side of this helicopter. He's going to start singing like Johnny Cash. I hurt myself today to see if I still feel. Man, it's like, bro, this guy is, like, depressed or something. He's doing badly.
Man, he looks like when it's like they bring your son to work day or something like that, and they walk around like their shoulders real low and just kind of like mope behind like the father at the day of work or something like that because they're not really sure what they're supposed to be doing. That's what he looks like. He kind of just looks like he's not even supposed to be here.
Man, you know what he kind of looks like? He looks like he's not even within his right mind. Like he looks like he's lost his mind basically at this point, and he's just being moved around like a prop. Like that's really what he looks like.
Yeah, he really does. Honestly, what a sad sight.
Man, I gotta tell you, rough right there, rough stuff. But outside of that, though, we do have a little bow about the Belarusian threat today. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
All right, so to quickly go over this right here, Belarus did warn earlier that it will use nuclear weapons if it's attacked, and they also threatened NATO. They pretty much threatened all the Baltic states. They threatened Poland. They threatened Ukraine. They went through the whole gamut today. So what's up with Belarus? Why are they starting to get so extreme with their threats amidst the other allegations that Belarus might be trying to join the war against Ukraine very soon? 43% said Belarus is trying to prove loyalty to Putin in the midst of all this chaos, while 27% said Belarus is preparing to attack Ukraine, and that's why they're getting so crazy acting. And 23% said it seems like Belarus is a little bit scared of something. And I would say I'm on the 27% actually. I think Belarus is preparing to attack Ukraine in some form or another, or allow Russia to use their territory to attack Ukraine. And that's probably why they're doing this, because there's always the real threat that if Belarus follows through with attacking Ukraine, the NATO allies like Poland, etc., they might decide that they're not going to allow that to happen because it's basically ganging up on Ukraine to a large degree, and they might get involved. And France might get involved. We heard that France was threatening to get involved before the last time this allegation went around. So I think that's why Belarus is doing this. They're trying to go ahead and scare people off from trying to retaliate against their country when they do eventually launch some sort of attack against Ukraine. That's my best guess. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would think that they're just trying to prove some loyalty to Putin or something along those lines. Because a lot of the statements these days coming out of Belarus have been fairly rhetorical, or more so along the lines of some sort of pro-Russian rhetoric. And I think that's just once again trying to make sure to hedge that, Lukashenko doesn't get overthrown, and it's clear that his loyalties are not questioned, or questionable for that matter. So with that, it is time for us to move on and into our Russian casualty report for the day. And I wonder, folks, how many Russians have been glassed over the past 24 hours? Holy moly! Quite a lot. According to Miss D, Secure the Records, 82 artillery pieces lost, ranks as the 10th highest daily loss, and this is the third day with that total in the last 4 days. We've also been able to hear that 1,905 drones is near the current average, and the year-to-date total is 152,779, and is double the 2025 total of 76,603, already showing that the Ukrainians are getting incredibly good at intercepting unbelievable volumes of drones on a daily basis. Moving us on and into the Kashmir report, we were able to hear that 1,040 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed, along with 7 APCs, 192 supply trucks, 82 artillery pieces, 1,905 drones, 1 MLRS, and that was it. Still a pretty decent day, and considering that the Russians are materially pretty much plumb out of luck for any equipment these days, they're still getting a pretty decent amount of equipment on the day-to-day. Moving us on into the front lines, we finally got some combat footage out of the Siberinsky Forest from the 3rd Assault Brigade of the 2nd Assault Battalion. And we were able to see some real action today in these woods.
Це в американців штурмовий альпінізм. Із вертольотів на мотузках, у нас штурмовий альпінізм.
You see them moving around the fog, waving.
Baltic.
Hello! Hello!
Метрів вгору.
We hear the drones. It's like muted. Like no music. Is that music though? Okay, I think it is. Oh, like Chad. Man, it's kind of like that dystopian music that they play, where it's like, you know what I'm talking about, like in the Instagram reels, like,
Or like a song from Dune.
wait, hang on. Oh, I got it. Mia, bro, like
Yeah,
that.
there you go.
Yeah, that one. Oh man.
Holy moly.
We see them clearing out the Russian dugouts. Generally, most of the gunfights or infantry firefights that happen these days are usually done at quite close ranges. We can also see them evacuating a wounded Ukrainian soldier from the firefight. But the firefights are done at incredibly close ranges these days, as most everything else is dealt with drones. Well, is dealt with by drones, meaning that most infantry engagements happen at a distance of less than about 30 meters. That also means that the lethality per shot is incredibly high because it's very hard to miss at those sorts of ranges. And also, it once again makes the battles incredibly scary for most everyone involved. The trauma there is pretty high. But outside of that, though, it does also allow for the Ukrainians, using their superiority of drones in firepower, to be able to put the Russians holed up in their bunkers and then just advance onto the bunkers that they're hiding inside of, and then start lobbing grenades in and shooting into them until the Russians eventually give up or surrender, or they're completely wiped out. Moving us on from that and down towards the Konstantinivka front, Ukrainian anti-drone drone defenses have also been doing quite well in intercepting and destroying Russian recon drones in large numbers. This is an incredibly important.
Was that an airplane? Was that an airplane? The first shot?
No, it was a really nice drone, like one of the few that Russia's ever made, and they blew it up.
Jeez, man, that the pixelation made it look like it was a whole plane. I was like, dang, man, they took down a whole plane with a drone. That's crazy.
I mean, that wouldn't be far off. I mean, they did take out a couple of Ka-52s at this point with drones, which is pretty wild to think. But this is an incredibly important, continuous sort of a defense operation that the Ukrainians conduct, as reconnaissance is actually one of the biggest killers on the front lines. If the Russians are able to gather accurate reconnaissance on Ukrainian positions, they could send their artillery or some form of FPV drones to fire onto that vector and start to cause significant amounts of casualties. For this reason, it's incredibly important for the Ukrainians to always keep air defenses up, like their drones, to be able to find, detect, and destroy the incoming Russian reconnaissance drones, to make sure that the Russians are largely blind on exactly where the Ukrainian ground forces are within that front. We also got to see that the Ukrainian troops that were continuing to rotate in and out of Konstantinivka were also coming under a significant amount of Russian FPV drone attacks, but we're largely shrugging them off pretty easy. Also,
Man, that's what the U.S. is sounding like right now in the midst of all this chaos. Is that?
Let me see here. Make sure to prepare yourselves for the rubber band, man. Man, yikes! Jesus, man. So it's about to come in. Someone's about to say, folks, it's coming, that I'm being very political, and I don't get it. Like, I'll never get it. I'll never get it. But you see the Ukrainians are going about 80 miles an hour as they continue to get hit by drones, but the MRAP is largely shrugging off the drones pretty easy. Here comes another. And it was a miss. Didn't break through the armor, and they're still on the road. Well, moving us on from that, and on out of that little clip, and on further down towards the Pokrovsk front, we also get to see the 1st UAS Battalion of the 59th Assault Brigade also targeting and hitting Russian forces within this area.
Oh, wow.
Oh, he
Oh,
didn't
dear.
make it.
Okay.
A lot of backpacks out there. Oh, look. Vadim. Oh.
Yikes.
Oh, look, it's Igor. Nah. Well,
Oh, no. Well.
they can't win them all, you know. But anyways, moving us on out of that clip, it is time for us to move on out of the Pokrovsk front and towards the southern front, because we actually get to see that Ukrainian MiG-29 saw this little Russian drone team launching a drone, and the MiG said, Unga, and dropped a couple of GBUs on them. A little unfortunate for the Russian drone operators, but very fortunate for the Ukrainians that they were pretty sloppy and were caught in the wide open. Yeah, see, they're going back to their dugout in the tree line right there. It's pretty obvious, you know, once they fire off the drone, because they literally walk straight back to their dugout. So the Ukrainians are going to take care of it.
Oh boy, they're sending in the heavy hardware.
And there goes the GBUs, and the MiG rolls over after dropping them at a lobbing angle. Now I see them whipping back. And here comes the GBUs, right on position. And, bam, there we go. That only took about 9 tries. And maybe a second. Oh, gratuitous. Second bomba. Это хорошо, бля. Oh, well, their outpost is gone.
Oh, my goodness. Whoa.
I don't think the ops are on the block anymore after that one. I think the ops are spread across the block.
If it wasn't destroying the actual system itself, the tunnel system, whatever they built to the dugout, then, you know, I think they just dug the whole thing out.
Man, I think that's what they call dugout. But anyways, moving us on up to Kyiv. It is now time for us to get the speech from the President of Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky, here on this day of 1518 of the news from around the world and also from Ukraine. So, without further ado, here is the speech. Speech!
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці і українки. Щойно говорив з канцлером Мерцем. А перед тим сьогодні вже спілкувались з президентом Європейської ради Коштою і президенткою Єврокомісії Урсулою фон дер Ляєн. Важливо, щоб відбулось розблокування європейського пакету підтримки для України – 90 мільярдів євро на 2 роки. Це кошти, які вже були затверджені Європейською радою, але блокувалися. Зараз жодних приводів для блокування бути не може. Євросоюз просив Україну відремонтувати нафтопровід «Дружба», який росіяни розбили. Ми відремонтували. Сподіваємось, що і Євросоюз буде реалізовувати домовленості. Давно немає прогресу також і по нових санкціях проти Росії за цю війну. Тим більше це не допомагає, коли Америка послаблює обмеження. Тиск повинен бути, щоб росіяни не відчували, що можуть воювати спокійно та без наслідків. Сьогодні детально говорили з військовими. Була доповідь головнокомандувача Сирського та начальника Генерального штабу Гнатова. Ми розуміємо, що в планах у російської армії та які у них пріоритети, є відповідні мапи, є деталі. Ми будемо протидіяти. Сили і засоби для цього визначені. Погодив і наші наступні операції. Українські далекобійні санкції будуть працювати та знижувати російські можливості. Війну треба завершувати, і дипломатія сама себе не наблизить. Потрібен тиск на агресора, щоб війна йшла до закінчення. Ми говорили сьогодні також детально з міністром оборони України Федоровим, разом з військовим командуванням. Є речі, які потрібно зробити для більшої мотивації наших військових, як по комплектуванню підрозділів, так і по додатковому фінансуванню армії. Рішення готуються. Ще одне. Ми домовились з прем'єр-міністром України Свериденко та міністром економіки Соболевим, що найближчими тижнями визначимось із додатковими економічними заходами, які допоможуть Україні стати сильніше. Потрібен більш стратегічний, системний підхід, який дозволить Україні покладатись на свої сили суттєвіше і дати суспільству зараз, в умовах цієї війни, можливості жити достойніше. Це стосується і податкової стратегії, і детінізації економіки, і реальної підтримки українців і українського бізнесу. Я дякую всім нашим людям, хто б'ється заради інтересів України, як заради себе самого. Дякую всім, хто нам допомагає. Слава Україні!
Heroes Slava.
And with that, that is the end of the speech from the President of Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky, here on this day of 1518 of the news from around the world. And that's going to be moving us on and into the second part of this stream where we get to talk to all of y'all. Y'all have survived. Y'all have endured. Y'all have made it through 2 hours and 23 minutes of news. And I've got to thank y'all all greatly for enjoying that so far. I hope that it's been a blast as far as the news coverage tonight. We had a lot of crazy things to cover, and, you know, the world is as interesting as it was on Sunday today, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it is a thing. And so definitely something worthwhile of watching. And I get to thank you all from watching from here on the Enforcer Show. We're entirely honored that so many of y'all continue to consider this channel to be your primary source of news, if not your only source of news. And I hope that we've been able to do all of y'all a good honor tonight by making sure that our news is well presented, well researched, and also well analyzed, as the analysis is an incredibly important part of this show and our day-to-day runnings. And so, with that in mind, it is time for us to move on and into that second segment of the stream where we get to talk to each and every one of y'all. And we can talk about anything, folks, except for religion, politics, climate change, and whether the A-10 Warthog is relevant in modern warfare. And, you know, I have a feeling we're going to have an absolute blast. So, Matthew, please take it away.
All right, so it's now time for what some people may say. They're telling me, sir, this is the most anticipated part of the stream right here, the question segment. That's what people are telling me, and I must take them at their word because these voices that speak to me, you cannot just simply ignore them. They are here and they're here to stay. But anyways, though, with that, jumping into our super chat questions, live chat questions, and Morse code decoders of the night, we are starting with our first super chat, which goes to Numerian, who puts in a very generous $50 support. And thank you very much, Numerian, for that support. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And they said the IRGC are pretty much raking over and watching the government who they think are traitors for the peace talks. But hardcore IRGC and regional units are infighting. So what better than use extended time to let them fight each other?
And I thank you for supporting Numerian, but the thing is that we don't really have that kind of time. It would be a great thing if time was on our side, but because of the blockade on the Strait of Hormuz, which is still ongoing at this moment, if we were to take all of those statements at face value about the internal situation in Iran, we still just don't have the time to wait. Right now, Europe is running out of oil. And while a lot of people have said, well, that's great, they're going to buy American oil, that's not great. They're going to buy American oil. That's not a good thing for us. Like just to say that plainly, because we only produce so much oil every day. We produce in the United States of America about 13.7 million barrels of oil a day. And that is the largest production anywhere in the world. I want to make sure that I get that correct. U.S. Oil production daily. Let me make sure that I get this right, folks. Let's see. Hold up. Wait a minute. Wait, hang on. Is that correct? Let me go look at something here really quick. Why in the world did it? Oh, okay. So, the U.S. produces 21.6 million barrels a day, but only 13 million of that is crude. So I did get that number correct. The rest of it's liquefied natural gas. That threw me for a loop there because I was like, wait a minute. I was like, that's like the liquefied natural gas and the crude oil number, and that is the combined figure. But we only produce 13 million barrels of crude oil a day. And that only covers the transportation inside the United States of America. That doesn't cover all of our industrial uses of oil. That doesn't cover our commercial and also our other additional other uses of oil as well, which amount on the daily to something about 21 million barrels of crude oil consumed in this country daily. Meaning that generally we're actually running most days a significant oil deficit of usually about 8 million barrels of oil that we have to import from overseas. Meaning that the United States technically isn't crude oil self-sufficient. We actually still rely on foreign imports. And currently with about 30% of global oil production tied up in the Middle East without being able to get out, that leaves Europe, which has no large oil fields to speak of that are able to supplant or completely produce their own consumption, hungry for oil, and that means they're going to be looking at us because we're one of the few oil producers left in the world that they can buy from. They're not going to buy from Russia because Russia is an enemy of the European Union and would put them at a strategic disadvantage to literally pay their enemy cash for oil, and they also won't buy from the Middle East either because they can't get anything from the Middle East. So that means they have to buy from us. And if they do that, our strategic oil reserves, which are already going to be consumed by the U.S. consumer base, are also going to be consumed even more rapidly by the entire European consumer base. And so generally, while it would be great in a perfect world to sit back and just let the infighting consume them, we really can only do that if the Strait of Hormuz is open, and then we can let all the infighting commence if that's happening. But we just can't let that happen in this current scenario. We have to take action and fast.
And also, do we even really know that they're really fighting that bad? Like, I'm sure that there's infighting, of course, and we've even reported on that here on the channel. We've said that there's rumors that the IRGC, the military, is fighting with the new government, which it seems like it could be plausible that they're doing that, but we've seen no concrete evidence that that is actually happening at a degree big enough to actually cause a problem. Like, that's the problem right now. Right now, the U.S. officials are claiming that's happening, but we're really not seeing that for a concrete fact. So, I mean, that's a pretty big assumption to lean on right there, to assume that they're actually fighting hard enough to cause disruption. So I would personally put some doubt in that.
And also, I just saw someone, and I think this is starting to die down as an idea, but someone just said that's where Venezuela comes in. It doesn't really do a lot for anyone because Venezuela only produces about 1 million barrels of oil a day, which sounds like a lot, but the United States consumes 21 million barrels of oil a day, meaning that it hardly makes up a fraction. Like the entire oil production of Venezuela a day hardly makes up even a small fraction of our consumption, much less the combined consumption of the US's crude oil demands daily and all of Europe's. Venezuela cannot supplant and never will supplant the oil production out of the Middle East. Maybe one day Venezuela can be a pretty significant oil producer that's producing 4 to 5 million barrels a day, but that only means that they're close to being Canada at that level of production. That also means that they would be about the level of the United Arab Emirates daily production or Iraq's daily production, which is around that number. There's no way that Venezuela can supplant Middle Eastern oil production, especially in the here and now, because, and also I know that like the next thing people always say is, well, give it like 6 years and Venezuela could get to that point, but we don't have 6 years. The oil that we need right now is going to go in y'all's gas tank tomorrow. So we don't have 6 years to wait for Venezuela's oil fields to become matured and developed to where they actually produce millions of barrels of oil a day. We just don't have that time. We need oil right now. And the oil that we
You putting oil in the gas tank?
Well, no, like, of course, refined fuel products, but, the U.S. as a nation needs oil today, and also Europe needs oil. We can't, the truth of it is, folks, we can't let Europe come over here and just indefinitely take our oil, because we're going to run out of it for ourselves, and we're also going to run out of it for them. So we have to find them we have to find them a nice cup of oil that they can stick their straw in and sip on instead of ours. Our cup is only big enough for us to make enough for ourselves and then export some elsewhere, which is generally what we do, and then import a whole load to make up the difference. Europe can't be supported off of America's oil production, and then we also support ourselves on that as well. So it would be nice to say that we have time, but we just don't, sadly. And I would say that while we could let them infight and do all that, at the same time, though, we need to clear open the strait. And we need to get the oil flowing once more. That's what I would generally say. But a big thanks to you for supporting Marion. And it's a good idea, but sadly, I just think our practical limitations right now don't really buy us that kind of time. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that I've addressed that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one's going to go to Hokey Redneck, who put in a 50. And thank you very much, Hokey, for that $50 support. Hey. He said, I made it out of Biloxi, down only 1,000 and alive. Good. He said, I see what you meant. Mobile is much nicer. Well, it's really sad with Biloxi. Like, I remember before the hurricane hit it, Hurricane Katrina, that is, it was a lot nicer than it is now. It's gotten really rough now that the hurricane hit it a while back during Katrina. What was that, 2006 that hit?
2005, I think.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, Katrina wiped that whole place out. Like, it really ruined it, and it never really came back really that well. So it's not that great. It's not horrid, but it's not that great either. But unfortunately, what say you?
Biloxi is really kind of had a fall from grace. I was very little before Hurricane Katrina hit Biloxi and everything down there on the Gulf Coast. I was about 2 years old or so when that happened. Believe it or not, folks, for some reason, some crazy reason, I have one memory from before Hurricane Katrina hit the area. And Biloxi was actually pretty nice as far as my recollection is able to go from then. And I remember it very clearly. There was this it's a concrete lot now. It's not
They
that.
built over it.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, you talking about that little amusement park that
Yeah,
was
like
there
that
on the
little
beach?
carnival sort of a thing.
Yeah, that's been built over.
Oh, wow, that's crazy. But there was a little carnival somewhere down here. I think it was right on this area of the beach almost. And I remember that my mom was putting me in one of the little rides. It was like almost like one of those little drop elevator things, but it was really, really small. I think it was probably like maybe 8 feet tall or something like that. It was like nothing. And I was crying my eyes out on that thing. I was freaking out. I remember that vividly. And that's really one of the few memories that I had before Hurricane Katrina hit the place. But after Hurricane Katrina hit, basically Biloxi went into an economic depression or a recession, best way to put it, that it never really recovered from, sadly, and it's still a pretty economically depressed kind of a place because their local economy was basically destroyed post Katrina and was never really fully recovered. So a bit of an unfortunate thing with that, really. But yeah, Mobile is pretty neat. Like downtown Mobile is really cool, actually. Like that's actually a place that I'm always like, oh, that's so neat. Like the Battle House Hotel down here, which has the Whispering Arches, which is really cool. And you have the Austell shipyards and the USS Alabama, and also the larger shipyards that they still have down here in the Port of Mobile. It's an interesting place. Some parts of it aren't that great, but I always thought that Mobile was a pretty neat place, considering that it's Alabama's only major port city. I always thought it was cool. But a huge thanks to you for the support and help with this channel to keep it running. And I hope that you have a good time on your return trip as well. Make sure to stay safe out there and stay hydrated, make sure to drink plenty of water. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And also, let's see here. I see someone saying in the chat, I saw something interesting there when I was saying, some people are saying Katrina was a massive setback. It really was. It's really unfortunate what it did to that area of the coast, because the Mississippi part of the coast never recovered. The Alabama portions of the coast, which really weren't hit too badly, they generally recovered and are doing fine. Like if you go down to Gulf Shores or anywhere around there, it's pretty decent, or Dauphin Island. New Orleans in some places didn't really economically recover, but I'm really happy, folks, to see. I think it was, what was it called, Matthew? Hurricane Helene, the one that went through like the Nantahala area in North Carolina, something around there.
Yeah, I think so.
That one is actually getting a decent amount of assistance and recovery. Like I've been hearing that it's been slow rolling for the past couple of years since Helene, but they are recovering the area generally, which is great to hear, because honestly, some of the assistance post Katrina was almost non-existent down there. But a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that well, Hokie. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a $100 support, massive support, by the way, from Truckin' Chef. And thank you very much, Truckin' Chef, for that very generous support. He said, third chat, he said, I highly look forward to your analysis and commentary when it comes to global geopolitical information. I heard stuff from mainstream media over the past few days, and I look to y'all for facts. I really appreciate it. And diesel hovering around an average of $5.02, and LLT LSA. And also, thank you very much for the kind words. We do appreciate that. And also, I don't blame you. Like, I'm not trying to just glaze our channel, because obviously we're biased because we're the ones presenting the channel. But I don't listen to mainstream media for facts anymore. Now, there are some, newspaper type outlets that are out there that still do a good, like, investigating reporting. But they're only good for, like, their exclusive stories. And outside of that, their opinion and commentary is a little bit off base, in my opinion. So, mainstream media used to be reliable back in the day, but not anymore. And that's why people like us have had success, and we're glad to fill the gap. But Enforcer, what say you?
Say a huge thanks to you as well for that unbelievably high praise, Trucking Chef. That's incredibly high praise, and we're always greatly appreciative of it. And also, to do a little bit of self-glazing, to add on, generally I feel like our analysis and coverage of things is about as even as it can be. And some people are going to say, no, it's not, because you criticize the president. But the thing with that, though, is it's like, if you don't like our coverage because we criticize the president, which we did on the last one as well, then we're not the problem. That viewer's the problem. It's like, they weren't complaining at all, like some of these people, because some of them have actually been around on the channel for a while. A lot of them are bots, but a few of them have been around on the channel for a while. They were all for it when we were criticizing the last administration on anything that they would do. Oh, yes, it's so bad, it's so bad. And then there was a lot of people who hated us for that. And now that it's flipped and it's going the other way, and we're criticizing the current administration for actions that are done poorly, now they want to say, like, less opinions and stick to the news. It's like, well, we've always given analysis. And it's like, and on top of that, it's straight up analysis. Like, if something doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. Like, I don't really get into my opinions on, whether I like the guy or something like that, and I think it's kind of a little bit clear. I lean more towards disliking most everyone who's president than liking them. But at the same time, though, we try and give our most fair analysis. Like, if, for example, we want to go to war with Iran and we want to achieve some sort of an objective, we sit there and say, that's great, certainly something that needs to be done. This is the A, B, C, and D thing that we think that is the most clear and obvious thing that would lead to the best results. And if you did, X, Y, and Z things, this is going to end up badly. And then the president will do X, Y, and Z things like 3 days later, and then we'll be like, well, he did X, Y, and Z things. These were the bad actions to take. So this is what's going to happen. And then people want to act like we're just going out of our way to diss on the guy, when in reality, we literally lay everything out days before it happens. We're like, here's everything that could happen, and here's what's the good things that could be done, and here's the bad things that could be done. He almost picks the bad option every time. And I'm not going to sit there and, retroactively say, well, actually the bad actions are good actions, because that would be biased, like inherently biased. But a huge thanks to you for enjoying our coverage, Truck and Chef. We try our best, and I'm glad to know that folks like you massively support the channel to keep us on air with our coverage and analysis, and also help us to be able to speak the news as it comes out, and also our opinions or analysis, whatever you want to call it, as well. And so a big thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep it rolling. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a $50 support from Kevin Humphrey. And thank you, Kevin, for that 50. And he said, Canada strong, elbows up, a true North strong, not maple something. Let's be clear. Thank you for the work, guys. And let me know when we're next, eh?
Hey, and thank you so much for the support. And I gotta say, Canada is a cool place. I actually like Canada a whole lot. Their history is really cool, and I like their culture. Very similar to the United States. Like, if I ever said that there was a brotherly nation of the United States somewhere in the world that was basically almost just like us, it would be Canada. There's no other country that comes close. Canadian culture and American culture in a lot of instances is almost interchangeable. Like a lot of famous actors here in the United States are Canadian, like it's really interesting about that too, and you really wouldn't know it until someone told you. Just disconnected. It was even shocked about that.
Oh,
yeah, man, that's crazy. So hopefully we're back right now. Sorry about the lag, folks. For some reason, OBS just kind of dipped out for a minute. But outside of that, though, what I was saying before OBS went out is that you wouldn't really know that a lot of people are Canadian until they tell you that that person is a Canadian, because they're so similar to us here in the States. And I gotta say, we really appreciate our allies in the North. Really cool country, really neat history and a culture very similar to ours. And also beautiful landscapes. Like, if you go down here into the Jasper National Park, which I got to show y'all here really quickly. Let me see if I can show y'all a nice view of it. See, look at that, the tree-lined streets. Let me actually go and get some pictures of this place. Look at that. I mean, that's a beautiful country up there in Canada. Prime real estate, really.
that is prime. Look at that. Real prime like rib right there. They said, sir, look at those trees, sir. Those trees are something to tear down, chop them down. They get a little bit of wood. That's what they say. The best wood. That's what they're doing out here in Canada. They provide the best wood.
It's the greatest wood, the highest quality wood. Some people call me up and say, sir, give me the wood. And I say, I'll give you, like, a lot of it. But not in that way, though. No diddy. He's down in Fort Dix. Like, no joke. Real place. You wouldn't believe it. So people told me, Mr. President, he's in Fort Dix. And I said, is that like some kind of a joke? And they said, no, sir, it's real. He's really there. And he's there with who else? I forgot who, but beyond that, though, they told me there's no baby oil down there. Really sad for him, We wish him the best. No diddy. But anyways, beyond that, though, Canada is a really beautiful country, and a huge thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope that does address that well, Kevin. And with that, we are on to the next one, eh?
And we also, hey.
Yeah, because he said eh at
Oh,
the end
you're
of
doing
his
Are you doing the Canadian thing? I was like, hey, I was like, oh, what do you mean? Like, did you see something in the chat or something like that wasn't right? I was like, I mean, for a minute there, I took you too literally. But moving on to our next one here.
Bro, you threw me
This-
off, man. You said, huh? I was like, what? I was like, wait a minute, what
You
happened?
said,
I was like,
you said, I'll move on to the next one. Hey, and I was like, huh? I was like, hey, I was like, whoa. But anyways, moving on to our next one, we have a $28 support from David Reutenberg. And thank you very much, David, for that $28 support. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And David said, the blockade is hurting Iran and is the continuation of the war by other means.
well, it's hurting Iran, but, we kind of have to compare the damage. Because if Iran is hurting us more than we're hurting them, it doesn't really matter how much, how much the fact is that we're hurting them. Like for example, if we're in a war with Iran, right, and we shoot, the U.S. Army shoots 5 of their guys that are in like a platoon or whatever, but they take out half of our platoon in the meantime, it's really hard to say, like on the economic sense, well, we're hurting them because we're getting hurt more in turn over the same period of time. So I get what you're saying, but at the same time, though, like, just kind of like chipping off a piece of marble on a palace isn't exactly ripping down the palace, if you know what I mean. And right now, there's going to be a lot more economic damage caused here in the West than there would be over inside of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Because if they're losing $500 million a day, Matthew, what has been the largest market loss that we've seen in a single day here in the United States so far?
Market loss? Like, what do you mean?
Like, like the actual market cap that's been lost because of the stock market kind of plummeting from time to time. What's been the biggest one recently? Wasn't it like $1 trillion or something like that?
Yeah, like unrealized losses, I guess you could say. Well, I'll take that back. I think it has been like $1 trillion swings, but those are considered pretty big ones. But also, by the way, it has rebounded since then, so it's kind of just the ebb and flow.
But, when you watch that kind of ebb and flow, though, even with it being an ebb and a flow, Iran isn't going through that kind of an ebb and flow on their own with the blockade right now. So it's like, it's a completely different scale of damage that they're inflicting on us economically versus what we're doing to them. So, beyond just the claim of, yeah, we're hurting them a little, it's like, how much are we getting hurt compared to how they're being hurt? And then when it comes down to that, they're hurting us way more than we're hurting them right now with the whole blockade on blockade trick. So then at this point, it'd become a lot smarter for us to just go in and militarily break their blockade so that we were not getting hurt economically at all. And then if we wanted to keep up our blockade afterwards on ships going in and out of Iran, then we certainly could. But only when we see that all of the damage that's being conducted to us in a far larger amount is been removed from the equation. That would largely be my 2 cents on the matter. But I do thank you for the support and help with this channel to keep it running, and I hope that has addressed that well, David. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have here a $28 support from Duncan VR. And thank you very much, Duncan, for that $28 support from Down Under. He said, Bamu will crack. Sir, we're going to China for a photo op, sir, with a Bing Shilling Baba. I hope it likes KFC. They said KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. It's some chicken. I love that chicken. You gotta love it. You gotta love it, sir. It's a good chicken. I don't like it. How about a 20-piece bucket with added oil? Now the strait is open. It's closed. Psych. Yeah, bye-bye.
So many people have told me, sir, the Iranians, they want the strait open. And I said, no, they don't, because they have much trouble. No, they don't. That's not true. That's not true at all. Some of y'all might pick up on that, but I don't know. But beyond that, though, I do have to tell you that Iran is a really crazy place. I thought it was an Apple product. They said it's the Iran. And I said, wow, that's crazy. That's like the Iraq. I remember buying an Iraq back in the day. It was a very nice thing, wonderful thing.
It's funny that you mentioned Iran, because that's kind of what I want to do right now. Is I want to just run from the problem. That's what I want to do, sir. I said, sir, I want to get up and run. I ain't done it in years, but I want to get up and run. And nobody's ever seen him run quite like that. They call him a Iron Man. That's what they call him. He runs these marathons, these beautiful marathons, long range. That's what they call it. Long range running, like a tomahawk. That's what they call it, sir. Like a long range missile. We love those beautiful missiles. They're making those missiles so nice. It's a crazy thing, sir. It's crazy.
Honestly, I thought Iran was where Forrest Gump was from. Great guy from Alabama. Love Forrest Gump, but honestly kind of tacky. How he was like simping for that woman, Jenny. Really something else. Honestly, you would have never caught me simping for a woman like that. No, sir. No, sir. I would have given up the first go around. Maybe like, a couple of divorces in, maybe. But beyond that, though, I do have to say, really crazy stuff that Forrest Gump guy. Opened up a shrimp company. Really, what a loser. What a real loser. Who in the world opens up a shrimping company? Really lame. I would have opened up a golf club. That would have been something else. Maybe even a Mar-a-Lago. That would be really good. But outside of that, though, this whole Iran thing, I gotta tell you, a lot of people like to run. A lot of people like to run. There's a lot of fat people in this country. Go ahead and tell them, Secretary of Health, there's a lot of fat people in this country, and we're going to go to war with the fat and stupid people. Not the people, but the problems that make them that way. That's wonderful. That's wonderful, Secretary.
I actually went to Costco today and I actually turned down the wrong aisle. I was trying to find the rotisserie, which is obviously in the back. It's hard to miss it. But I went down the wrong aisle and I turned, and the first thing I saw right in my face was tallow. And I was like, what the hell? I was like, I've never seen tallow like in an actual jar in my life in the grocery store. But I turned, it was right in front of my face. And I was like, I don't have any use for this. But I sat there and stared at it for a second. I thought about the guy. I thought about, I gotta start cooking the fries and add tallow and make the fries healthy. And I was like, oh my God, they put tallow in the Costco. I don't know if it was there before or not, but it's in there now.
I gotta tell you, to be entirely honest with you, that tallow, is that a dead raccoon? Oh, I need to go look. No, Mr. Secretary, no, don't go near the raccoon. But anyways, I gotta say, it's something else right there, really something else. The stories that have come out about the bear and what were the other ones, Mandy, that we actually can confirm?
Honestly, I can't remember them all. I remember there was one story about some animal getting hit with a car, allegedly. I just can't remember them all. There's been some crazy stories coming out.
Man, I'm not gonna lie, there's so many of them, you just kind of lose track. Like that one about how he helped himself study in college. I just say that story alone kind of disqualifies you from being like a health secretary. Because it's like, there's nothing healthy about that study habit. I can't even mention it on YouTube, but I was like, what the hell? I was like, this is real? But it's I guess it's healthier than what we've heard allegedly that some directors are doing in other government agencies right now. But by the way, folks, we don't have to worry about the Forestry Service, the heads of the Forestry Service agency and everything, because they actually axed that whole thing. By the way, forgot to tell you all about that a while ago. Nothing not trying to get into domestic politics here, but I'll tell you what was done recently. So the Forestry Service, or the U.S. Forest Service, which maintains all of the national forests in America, which a lot of people confuse for national parks, were actually disbanded. So all 11 of their regional offices were disbanded. And now their only headquarters that they're going to have for the entire country is going to be in Salt Lake City. That's it. So I don't know what they're going to do as far as maintaining the national forest and making sure that there's enough forest rangers around to make sure that people aren't breaking the rules left and right and, catching all of the national forests on fire and all that. But, hey, we don't have to worry about the Forestry Service anymore, because the whole thing that was set up by Gifford Pinchot over 100 years ago was literally just written away overnight with the signing of a pen. So, hey, great thing for forest conservation. We love the national forests and we love the national parks. One of the greatest things our country's got, and we just axed basically the whole Forestry Service. So, good on that. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one.
All right. So moving on to our next one here. Let's see. Here. We got a little attack going on here. Looks like near Iran. Let's see what we got cooking. So I'm seeing here a report that's coming out from the UKMTO, which monitors maritime activity. It says 21st of April, 2026. It says the UKMTO has received a report of an incident 15 nautical miles northeast of Oman. The master of a container ship reported that the vessel was approached by one IRGC gunboat. No VHF challenge that then fired upon the vessel, which caused heavy damage to the bridge. No fires or environmental impact reported. All crew safe. So it looks like off the northeast area of Oman, we're currently seeing a vessel being engaged by the IRGC, it looks like, and that apparently just came in that we're seeing right now. So it appears to be a confirmed attack.
Interesting. Might be the opening of more attacks on other merchant ships throughout the area, but we'll have to wait and see. But with that, I hope that does address that the best we possibly can. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a super chat here from none other than Craig Jones. And he put in a 20 and said, I'm glad you're back.
And we're glad to be back. We're glad to be back. I was supposed to make a Patreon post today before the stream, folks. Sorry about that. I didn't actually have enough time to do that. So it's going to be going up after the stream tonight. But I actually went out today, folks, and I did something good. I went into the Wasatch Forest and I like climbed up some mountain. So it was really cool. It was really fun. Had a great time. But we're glad to be back. We love being back and we love doing this. So big thanks to you for support. And we're on to the next one.
And we also have a 20 from none other than Ian Mitson. Thank you, Ian, as well. He said, I'm originally Bulgarian, but I've lived here 20 years, and this is my easy-to-read name. Bulgarians unfortunately voted in individuals that are warm towards Russia. It was either him or someone else. Not another Orban, I hope, and sad.
Let me tell you this. I'm not a croc. But a big thanks to your support. I'm fortunate to hear that, but, you know, that's the ebb and flow of politics, I suppose. But I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And we're happy to have you here in the United States of America. And so a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from Craig Jones. And thank you, Craig, again. He said, what would your next move be in this whole situation?
Well, my next move would be all talks are off. I would give the Iranians an ultimatum. The Strait of Hormuz is going to be opened within the next. I would give it however much longer amount of time the military needs. So you know, I would ask the Secretary of Defense, how long is it going to be until the military is ready to begin continuous military operations in Iran? And whatever answer I get, then the deadline would be however long that is, they have that amount of time to open the strait. If the strait is not open by then, we're going to begin clearing out everything that's keeping the strait closed. That's what my threat would be. And then if they didn't follow through with opening the strait, which they clearly wouldn't, then we would begin military actions focalized entirely on opening the strait. Once we end up weakening enough, we'll begin convoy escorts through that area. Bada bing, bada boom. No matter how difficult that is, it still has to be done. We will have completely avoided the problem that we're having right now. And that could be done at any time. And also people will say, well, it's impossible to do that. We don't know that yet because we haven't fought that battle. Like, how do you know? Like, how do we know that that battle would be unwinnable when that battle has not even been attempted to be fought yet? We have to fight that battle. Because that's the one that must be won. That's the one victory we need out of this whole war right now. That's the one we have to have. So I hope that does address it the best I can. That's how I would handle the situation starting right now, instead of doing this whole flip-floppy rigmarole BS that makes the United States look like a joke. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. Also, I saw Jeff Norbert say, still an insurance problem. Not necessarily, because if you have a convoy escort and you have 2 Burks as a part of each convoy escort, a lot of those companies are going to go, the chances of a tanker getting hit is low. The whole point of a convoy is that the tankers are in the middle of the convoy, and the Burks are going to fire at anything that tries to shoot at them. So the Burks are going to stop anything from attacking the tankers, so there is no insurance problem, because the risk of that action and the possible insurance claim that would have to be made would be incredibly low or non-existent at that point. So I hope that does also address that caveat, because a lot of people bring that up here and there. The risk would be mitigated to the point that the insurance really wouldn't be that much of an issue. But with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to T. Skolman. And thank you, T. Skolman, for that 20. He said, feed the marmot and Reggie before the price goes up. LSA, and take one from the chat, please.
Oh, and we're going to feed the marmot. We're going to feed the marmot. We got to feed that marmot. We love the marmot. This is a precious creature, the marmot. But big thanks to you for the support and having this channel to keep it running. And Reggie has also become a thing these days as well. I just came up with that name on the spot, and now everybody loves Reggie. Reggie's not even real. But big thanks to you so much once again. And we will make sure to take one from the chat. So what do we got, Matthew, in the chat in honor of T.S. Skolman?
All right, so this one goes to Diane Merriam. He said, I heard that about half of the drones shot at the Gulf states came from Iraqi territory, and any info?
Yes.
And that does appear to be the case, by the way. We reported on that earlier in the stream. It looks like most of them did come from that territory, and we saw today that I had heard that the U.S. had cut off all cash shipments to the Iraqis from the sounds of it, if I have that story correct. and they're punishing them that way. So it looks like they are taking action over it, and it appears to be corroborated to a large degree. So that is quite interesting. We've got to get a grip on those proxy forces inside of Iraq, which is generally right now kind of being overlooked to a large degree. But Enforcer, what say you?
And that is true. So I hope that does address that live chat well. And a big thanks to you for supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, and thank you as well, Mr. Bang Bang, for that support. He said, the world is absolutely wild.
Yeah, it is these days. I remember back in the day, folks, when life was simple. Every day we wake up and we look at the frontline situation in Ukraine, and that was like literally the only thing going on in the world. I remember back then a whole bunch of people were saying that World War III was going to happen. Man, how time changes. We're closer to World War III now than we ever have been, in my opinion. I think this is about as close to being World War III as the Cuban Missile Crisis was back in '62. But, the world is definitely a wild place. That is without a doubt AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang. But I got to thank you massively for supporting this channel so that we can cover the news in these absolutely wild times. So a huge thanks to you once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
Also, a big shout out to Crispy, throwing a 20, and thank you very much, Crispy, for always supporting the channel, just like that.
Hey!
And also a big shout out to Udia2357 for also throwing in a 20, and neither Crispy or Udia left a comment, but we do appreciate that very much from the both of you for helping to keep our work running. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you all massively as well. Y'all didn't throw in comments, but the support helps us to make loads of comments on air, and we're greatly appreciative of y'all enjoying the channel so much that y'all would support it. So a big thanks to y'all once again, and we're on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from the Becca Fly, who said at JCPOA, over a dozen IAEA reports confirmed Iran stayed within uranium enrichment levels, 3.67%, and stockpile sizes, 300 kilograms. And weeks before we withdrew State Department, Iran transparently, verifiably, and fully implemented the JCPOA. But also, by the way, though, if I'm not mistaken, a big problem was they were not being transparent about all their nuclear sites. That was a big problem. The IAEA was inspecting the sites they had access to, but I think the allegation was the Iranians were not disclosing some other sites that they secretly were operating, and that's currently what caused a major issue, was because they weren't disclosing all the sites. So they were allowing inspections at the ones they were making public, but they weren't allowing inspections of the ones that were being kept secret. I think that was the problem. But Enforcer, what say you?
That generally was the problem, and that's also why the JCPOA was fairly controversial during its time. It relied on good faith reporting by the Iranians and the allowance of IAEA inspectors to go everywhere in the country. And from what we know, all of the uranium enrichment facilities and tunnel facilities inside of Iran existed before the JCPOA was even a thing. So like the Qom uranium enrichment plant, for example, up here, was an existent and operational uranium enrichment facility before the JCPOA even was brought into being by Obama, the president at that time when the JCPOA was made and signed. This plant was actually operational in 2006 and was only unveiled publicly by the Iranians in 2009 because questions had been brought up about what is that by the IAEA, and then they're like, oh, it's a uranium enrichment plant. So already the facility, a lot of facilities like these, the tunnel facilities, started off in absolute secrecy, and even with the IAEA wandering around in Iran from time to time, the Iranians never disclosed that this nuclear facility existed. And then during the time of the JCPOA, and I remember this from way back then when I was a kid, I remember that the big thing is that the IAEA and other agencies were asking stuff like, can we go into Qom? And the Iranians were absolutely refusing. So the Iranians would allow them around above ground facilities, like say the Isfahan nuclear campus, but they really wouldn't allow them anywhere inside of any of these subterranean complexes. And that was the problem, is that we're relying on the good faith of the Iranian government, which doesn't exist because they're a terrorist state, to disclose publicly and transparently their nuclear weapons programs up front. And there's no reason to believe that they would, because another terrorist state, very similar to them, North Korea, was able to completely conceal their entire nuclear weapons program from the IAEA and the entirety of the outside world, save for the Soviet Union and the People's Republic of China, until their first successful nuclear weapons test in 2006 or 2007, if I'm not mistaken. And so if the North Koreans, which are also a terrorist state, were able to conceal, lie, and deceive everybody in the world while claiming the whole time they weren't making a nuclear weapon that they had developed and made a usable nuclear weapon, there's no reason to believe that the Iranians, who were already concealing a lot of their nuclear program in a shroud of secrecy, would be adhering to any sort of upstanding good faith principles of disclosing everything about their nuclear programs to us. And so that's kind of the thing. Like, I know that a lot of people say that the Iranians were adhering to the JCPOA, but the thing about that is that the Iranians were adhering to the JCPOA according to their own reporting and according to what they would allow the IAEA to see, which is only what they wanted the IAEA to know, because that would show that they were within the parameters of the agreement, when in reality they weren't. And these tunnel facilities, which were in operation during that time, clearly show that the JCPOA was not adhered to by the Iranians. And that's why I would say that a similar such agreement as that really wouldn't be on good standing, because we already know that the prior one didn't work well at all. So a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep running. But that's my general understanding of the JCPOA and the Iranian secrecy of their nuclear program, and it doesn't paint a good picture to where they're a country that can be trusted similarly again like that. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a $20 support from Music Uploader. And thank you very much, Music Uploader, for that $20 support. And we do appreciate that very much. He said, stop reading those stupid posts. It'll turn us stupid too. And that's how 69 dimension hypnotic chess works. LSA, chicken. And I must say, I think I would agree with that. I would have to say, at some point, the narratives can get so stupid to a certain point that it's like, it insults the intelligence of everybody, like not just the people that keep up with geopolitics like for a career, but also insults the intelligence of people that are generally just laymen that are going about their everyday business. I mean, if something doesn't make logical sense on its face, I mean, that's not going to fool anybody. So, Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta say a big thanks to you for the support, and I would have to agree. I don't really like, folks actually redact a lot of the statements the president makes unless they're absolutely necessary to read, because they come from absolute cuckoo land. Like, all of them are written like an insane person wrote them. And, if y'all want to take that politically, you can, but if you think that those statements sound at all like they're coming from a logical, level-headed, and cool-headed person, then you've got problems. Like, I just gotta say, like, I'm just gonna have to say that, because if you find an issue with what I'm saying on the statements that are made, I don't really know how in the world you would find the issue. Because if we talked like that, like, if anyone talked like that and they didn't have that voice to go with it, and like the little hand gestures, would anybody think that those words are coming from a reasonable person? Like, if we unironically got on here, folks, every single night, and just basically like glazed ourselves every single sentence, and then also talked about how, it's just insane. Like, when you think about it, there's no way that someone can go about every single sentence like that and it sounds reasonable. Like, most people that you would run into in life like that, you would think that they've got, they're off their rocker. And so when we read statements like that, it's hard not to say, wow, that sounds like someone off their rocker, because that's what my assumption of that would be, no matter who's saying it. But a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from Crispy, and thank you, Crispy, once again for that $20 support, the second one of the night, and we do appreciate that very, very much. And no comment to address, but we do appreciate the support. We also have a 20 from Matty Matt, who said, what's with the bears lately? I came across my second bear of the year on an e-bike session in Shasta Trinity National Forest. Even with my 10 mil on me, it was terrifying. Snapped a couple of pics and was about 50 meters away, 300 pounds minimum. Honestly, that's sketchy. Like, that's pretty sketchy right there. If it's a black bear, I don't think you have to worry about those too much, even though it's still horrifying, I'm sure, because it's still a bear. But if it's like a grizzly or a brown bear or something, that could be a real doozy right there. But I've heard that a 10 mil, I've heard that generally is good for protection from bears. And obviously, some larger caliber revolvers are pretty good as well. But honestly, though, like, my take is, even though I'm kind of terrified by these massive bears, because obviously they can rip you apart and maul you. That's an obvious threat to a bear. But, I would personally not want to have to do that to the bears. I saw a video yesterday when bears aren't trying to kill you. Like, they're actually kind of like cute, actually. But they're also kind of like killing machines, too, if they want to be. So it's kind of like a twisted thing. But Enforcer, what say you?
Honestly, I would I would carry a 30-06, but I'm not like cruising for a bruising when it comes to bears. Like, I respect nature and wildlife and all, and I would only shoot one if it came to like literal life or death. Like for some reason the thing was just wildly aggressive, and there was no way for me to get out of the situation unless if I shot it and then took a run for it. But those things are pretty scary. Like I like bears are terrifying no matter what. Like people like Matthew's like, oh, like a black bear, that isn't the worst. I mean, I'd still piss my pants in fear over a black bear even because they're not that aggressive. Like definitely not as aggressive as brown bears and grizzly bears, but they're still scary. I mean, it is a bear, several hundred pounds of pure muscle under that fur, and that's a scary thing. I'd hate to hear that you have dealt with two of them, because I've been hiking around out here in Utah, and I haven't even run into a snake yet. Like I've just been having smooth cruising everywhere I go. No bears, no snakes. There's only butterflies and deer, and deer are the biggest thing that I've seen yet. So I hate to hear that you've been dealing with that, but a big thanks to you for support, Matty, man, and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to hear interesting stories like that, and we wouldn't be able to tell you to stay safe out there. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from Truckin' Chef, and thank you as well, Mr. Truckin' Chef, for that support. He said, good evening, enforcers, and a question. Seeing all the drone defenses all over, beside a truck with a big gun on it, how could we track them and fire on them? And could the U.S. deploy something cheap and rapid? And thanks, enforcers and LSA. So the only way right now to actually defend against drones that I can tell that's generally pretty reliable is Ukraine's method, basically. Physical interceptors appears to be the best method at the moment to deal with drones, and Ukraine's developed multiple different models. They have several different models. Some of them are AI powered, and some of them are manually targeted at these drones for defense. So basically, fighting drones with drones is the way to do it. It's the only way to rapidly take down a target that's moving that fast is to literally use the same type of device to take it down. So lasers would be the best case scenario to take down drones, but the problem is laser technology is not far along enough yet to use that reliably, at least according to what I've seen. But Enforcer, what say you?
So the way that the Ukrainians have dealt with it, and this is why their interception rates are so high and in the thousands these days every day, is because Ukraine came up with this really cheap, and this is only a land usable system, it's not usable at sea, but they came up with this really cheap system of they plug some phones up on some plywood poles, and they covered these phones with a plastic solo cup so that way they wouldn't get rained on and shorted out. And they keep the microphone on these things all day long. And all of these phones are rigged into one single system that takes in, well, several of them actually, but they are all rigged into all of these several systems. And when a drone flies over, it only picks up the microphone activity. So if there's an increase in volume of a certain pitch and type that matches the sound of a drone motor or a drone engine that's known, that phone will light up on the system as there's a drone in this general area. And then once it flies over that phone into the next one a mile away, then that one lights up. And then that lets them know where that drone is, where it's heading, and that gives them a rough enough idea that they can go out and try and find the thing and shoot it down before it gets further into the country. That's how the Ukrainians have done it. The additional thing that they're starting to do these days in Ukraine, which is basically the zenith of their current drone defense, which is the most effective in the world, is that they're starting to develop autonomous gun systems that are attached to machine guns of any variety that are able to visually spot the drone, and apparently, I'm guessing through some sort of a laser identifier, detect the range, and then also detect, relative to the ground, its rate of travel and speed, so that way the gun can autonomously lead the target and be a lot more effective per shot in landing hits. That is currently the most effective system, but it's basically just evolving the truck-based technical drone defense into a much more fleshed out sort of a doctrine. But so far, that is the most effective and easily fieldable thing that we've seen so far in the world, and the Ukrainians have been working on that system for almost 3.5 years at this point, almost since the start of the war. But a huge thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Truckin' Chef, and I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a $20 support from Hokey Redneck yet again. And thank you very much, Hokey. He said, with the oil in your tank, what two-stroke you running in your car? Mercury, Johnson, Evinrude, Andrew?
I'm running a Mercury. I'm running an Ice Mercury, a defunct car company, good one. But I gotta thank you so much for the support.
They make outboard motors.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, yeah. He's talking about the outboard motors. All his other brands are outboard motor brands.
Oh, I thought that the Mercury company was a car company.
There is a car company called Mercury, but it was in the context of outboard motors. I think he was talking about. Those are two-strokes. The car was not a two-stroke.
Oh, I thought it was like a Lada, dude. Honestly, I thought Mercury would make something like that, like straight up, man.
You know what he's talking about, like with the oil in the tank thing with two strokes. You know what he's talking about?
Yeah, I know what he's talking about. It just went over my head because I was thinking, like, when I heard Mercury, I thought of like the car company.
Yeah. What I'm trying to test your knowledge here is I had a bet with Hokey Redneck about this right here. Do you know like the oil in the tank with a two-stroke? Do you know what he's talking about? Like what he's actually talking about?
Yeah, you have to have like the right oil mixture in the fuel to be able to run a two-stroke.
Yep. Okay, he did know. So Hokey Redneck, there's your answer.
Matthew, I'm not an idiot. like everyone knows.
I mean, that doesn't mean you're an idiot. If you don't have to know how the two-stroke fuel mixture works to be a smart person or an idiot, like you're jeez.
Man, that's the divide in between the smart people and the not smart people. Because anyone who's ever run like a leaf blower or a chainsaw, and you would know about that because they're all two strokes, and they all have to have like that right little oil mixture in their fuel to be able to run right.
Yeah, I think the mixture in most of the ones I was dealing with was like I think it was 50-50. I'm pretty sure.
I thought it was 60-40.
I can't remember though. I don't think so. I think it was like I don't know if I'm getting the proportion wrong. It was like 50-50 or 1-to-1. I think it might have been 1-to-1.
Yeah,
I can't recall it exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember mixing the stupid little fuel bottle. Like you mixed it in with like a gallon of gas or something like that, and it had the fuel mixture right, and then you use that in the engine, so that way it automatically lubricated everything. There's no separate oil compartment on a two-stroke like that.
That's honestly interesting to me. You know what's even more interesting are those total loss systems that they used to have like back at the beginning of the last century, like on motorcycles and stuff where you literally just pour in the oil and eventually it would just run out. Like it would literally just like bleed the oil out of the whole system and you'd have to refill it again. That was honestly kind of wild and really environmentally unsound when you think about that.
Yeah. Also, it's 50-to-1, by the way. It's not 1-to-1. I couldn't remember for some reason. In my head, I was thinking 50-50. Yeah. I mean, Hokey Redneck said, don't do 1-to-1. Yeah, I think you might destroy your engine if you do that. So don't do that. But, you go to Lowe's or Home Depot or something, they give you a little, like, fuel mixture things, little bottles of the oil or whatever. And you I just usually follow the instructions on the bottle and just dump it in the gallon of gas or whatever. But it was always a bit of a chore. You'd have to, you'd start doing yard work or something. Then you'd realize, oh, dang, I'm almost out of the 50-to-1. And then you go look for the stupid fuel bottle and you don't have any. So then you got to go all the way down to the hardware store to go get it and then come back. And by that point, you're tired. You don't even want to do work outside anymore. And you're trying to mix the fuel. It was always a pain.
It's honestly kind of like a stupid mess, honestly. I remember doing that too. And you had to get that stupid bottle and then you had to pour it in and you had to shake the gas can. Like, it was this whole production just to get a leaf blower running or like a chainsaw or anything else. Honestly, that was stupid. That was really dumb, honestly, thinking about how much work had to be done to get one of them running. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from Hokey Redneck once again. He said, can you do a quick rabbit hole on BB-60 USS Alabama Museum where I'm going tomorrow?
Yes, I can do one really quickly. So the USS Alabama is actually a really interesting battleship. Its nickname is the Lucky A because during the entirety of the Second World War, not a single sailor on board the ship died to enemy action. So very lucky vessel. Absolutely crazy. The Alabama actually held in the Tirpitz inside of a fjord in Norway until it could be destroyed. It also was involved in some other significant North Atlantic operations. And then after the North Atlantic started to round out, it was then moved to the Pacific to where it generally was involved in air defense screening action for carrier groups within the areas, I believe, of Okinawa and a couple of other locations. And the USS Alabama was actually the first battleship to be able to sail into Tokyo Bay when the Japanese were signing their unconditional surrender. Therefore, for that reason, the USS Alabama is actually a historically significant battleship for multiple different reasons. The Battleship Museum was actually created in 1960 as a part of a State of Alabama trust that was made by the state after a whole bunch of people in Alabama didn't want it to be scrapped, and then it became a museum. At this museum, there's a couple of interesting things to see, primarily the USS Alabama itself, but also the USS Drum, which is I believe if I'm not mistaken, a Gato-class submarine, and one of the few of its type that's been historically preserved, and it's actually in exceptional condition for the type of submarine that it is. They also have a couple of aircraft on display as well, and they have a pretty decent aircraft pavilion. If I'm not mistaken, they actually have, and they do, an SR-71 here. So that's a pretty cool one to see. And they also have a little bit more of naval aviation, considering that this is a bit of a naval museum. And they also have a P-51D in the Red Tails paint scheme, considering that the Red Tails are one of the most historically prominent air squadrons that came out of the state of Alabama, especially during the Second World War. But it's a really cool museum, definitely worth a visit. And honestly, I remember it from my childhood pretty fondly. Like, it was a really cool museum to see. And the Battleship Alabama is also incredibly cool as well. It's basically a pocket Iowa class for the most part, because it has the same 16-inch gun complement and 3 turrets with 3 guns each. So really cool one to see. Also, Matthew said, oh, what class? It's a Gato class, G-A-T-O. Pretty neat one, actually.
Gato.
It might be, it's like either Gato or Gato. I'm not really sure which it is.
Yeah, it could be one, it could be the other.
Hey, look, man. Anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 15 from Aquatico, who said, hey guys, and thank you for continuing to deliver the news. I recently moved to Maine, and I'm realizing I know little about Maine. I was shocked to learn that Maine was a part of Massachusetts for 170 years.
Yeah, that's something a lot of people don't know, because that's always something that never added up in my math, like when they would talk about the 13 colonies, it'd be like, oh, the 13 colonies. So that's all the states on the eastern seaboard, right? So then you start counting them. Right? So this is what I would always do. Okay, Georgia was 1, South Carolina was 2, North Carolina 3, Virginia 4, that included West Virginia. Maryland was 5, Delaware was 6, Pennsylvania was 8, New Jersey was 9, New York was 10, 11, 12, and then 13. And it's like, that doesn't add up. Like, something about that never made sense. And interestingly enough, for the longest time, because of the Massachusetts Bay Colony Charter, Maine was actually a part of that. And also was a part of Massachusetts for a pretty good time afterwards, too, which is something that nobody really knows, which is an interesting fact about the state of Maine. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have an $11 support from Lars, and Lars said, hey guys, I think Iran, it's all a distraction to favor Russia, and if Europe will be out of jet fuel, then Russia will be able to attack the Baltics.
It might be. We'll have to see. Hopefully that wouldn't be the case. But a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running, and I hope that does address that well. And also, by the way, folks, I got my count of the states wrong because the Carolinas was actually 1 colony, not 2, and I just miscounted that, so I want to make that clear. Also, Delaware was the first state. Hokey Redneck is absolutely correct in that. First state in the United States is the state of Delaware. But anyways, we are on to the next one.
We also have an $11 support from Lars once again. He said the ammo delivery are stopped, sanctions are gone, and the defense of Europe is mostly by air, and that's why I think Belarus is active with threats. And also that what the U.S. is doing right now with Europe is hard, by the way, because Russia is literally threatening the Baltics right now. And as far as we've heard, weapon shipments to the Baltic states have been put on hold by the United States because they say that, Iran is taking all of our weapons, which it could be very possible that is the case. But it's leaving the Baltics wide open. Also, they're giving Russia a huge break on sanctions again. They give them another extension despite saying that they would not do that. So they lied about that. And also, now we're seeing that the NATO alliance is being chipped away at by the United States. So they're literally, if they're doing it unintentionally, they're literally doing the most they could possibly do to hurt Europe at a time when they need defense. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that is definitely true. I would agree with that. And a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 10 from Craig Jones. And thank you, Craig, for that 10. He did not leave a comment, but we do appreciate that very, very much. We also have a 10 from Cohodes, who said gold is going down as the UAE, Saudis, Qatar, and Kuwait are selling their gold.
Interesting. That's really interesting. I thank you for sharing that. And a big thanks to you for support. And we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Waka Waka What. He said, there's a book out there about the art of something that could be having some troubles out there. And maybe so, possibly. I'm not really sure. I don't really keep up with those books. But Enforcer, what say you?
Folks, I got to tell you a little bit of advice. If anyone ever tells you that if you pay them money, they're going to tell you how to make money, never give them the money. Because they're that's how they're making the money. So that's the trick. So just don't do that. But outside of that, on that one, interesting to hear. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Craig Jones, who said, what do you think Israel wants here? They want the United States to go to war with Iran forever if they could. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say, oh, they just want what's good for them. They just want what's good. But big thanks to you so much for the support. I hope that addressed that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Fred Vreeman. And thank you, Fred, for that support. He said, you guys need to study Mining 101. In Alaska, we know all about that.
Well, in the South, we got taught about that too. That was called minding our own business. Like that. I'm just kidding, brother. I'm just playing around with you. That's not directed at Fred. That's just a general joke. But beyond that, I got to thank you so much for the support, Fred. And honestly, to be completely upfront with you about this, I'm actually really interested in mining. I find that a very interesting industry to learn about. And honestly, I do need to learn some mining 101 because I know little tidbits here and there about different types of mining, but I don't know a lot about mining as a broader industry. It's a really cool one though to me. But a huge thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep it running, and I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 10 from number 50 in line, and thank you very much for that support. They said this one's for the Advil fund for the headaches from trying to decipher those Truth Social posts. And honestly, I've had a headache all day long. I've been trying to hide it tonight. I had some little bit of, not Advil, but I had the Tylenol. But, they said, don't take it. Well, I took it, and I'm doing just fine, if you can tell.
You took Tylenol?
Yeah. I still hate trains.
Damn, I was about to make sure. I was about to ask you about that. Do you like him now? No, he doesn't. All right, so everyone, the trick is apparently it takes more than one. But anyways, then we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to none other than Crispy yet again. And Crispy throwing another 20, Crispy. And thank you very much, Crispy, for that 20. And Crispy, he said, woot! And he throws in a super stick right there, the game controller jumping around.
Hey, that's a big thanks to you for support, Crispy, and helping this channel to keep it running. And woot! And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 10 from Eastside Barbell who put in a 10. He said, potato head, funniest ever.
Potato head. Potato. I suppose. Well, yeah, Lukashenko is a pretty funny guy, actually. He's like a goofball. But big thanks to your support and help this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Truckin' Chef, who puts in a 10. He said, also, what about shipyards? Is it normal to have so many carriers in refit? And how many shipyards do we have? And can they handle all these ships? I'm just concerned. And thank you, Enforcers and LSA.
And actually, it's pretty normal. Most, if not, a lot of the carriers that we're seeing in refit right now, basically we keep that number in refit all the time. And I was making sure to research that today because, everyone keeps talking about, oh my God, there was a special documentary done in Britain and only 50% of the Royal Navy is available for combat duty. Turns out only 30% of the US Navy is available for combat duty at any time because the other 30% is in training and then the other 30% outside of that is in repair and refit. So generally it's a fairly normal thing. And to be entirely honest, now knowing that, I'm like, I don't know why people are throwing shade at Britain because statistically, by percentage volume, we're doing worse than they are at keeping our Navy at sea. But then, of course, someone's about to come in and be like, oh, well, we have a bigger Navy. It's like, well, statistically, that doesn't matter because nobody brought that into the equation with the whole British argument. And so it's just the statistical percentage that matters in that argument. You can't change the goalpost to go, well, America's special because it's like, well, statistically, we're doing worse than them actually keeping carriers at sea. But a big thanks to you for the support, and I hope that this does address that well. But do not worry, do not fret. It's always been like that in the Navy, and so it's not going to be that big of an issue. And if we need, say, more ships out there at sea, we can just end up cutting training short for a lot of those vessels and then put them out to sea and just hope for the best. But a big thanks to you once again, and with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Truckin' Chef. He said, last one, look up Muncho Lake, British Columbia. Look at the pictures. Absolutely beautiful. Almost hit a bison out there. And Enforcers, you'd love the views. And check it out.
Muncho Lake. Oh my lordy.
Oh, a grizzly.
Oh my God, man, I don't like it out here. Oh, look, a bison.
Those are as deadly as the grizzlies.
Man, that's a bison. Man, I like those bison. That's a really beautiful place to look at that water.
That water is like a aqua teal. Look at that. That's crazy.
Man, that's amazing. Look, it's a bison calf. Meh. And then this thing
It
kills
still
you.
looks deadly.
Man, that thing still looks scary. Like, honestly, damn, nature, you scary. But honestly, really cool little place. I gotta say, really beautiful one. And a big thanks to you for support and sharing this beautiful lake with us. And with that, we are on to the next one.
What was that guy that recently was like the filmmaker fellow that heard like the bear mauling on the audio or something like that?
That was
like,
Werner
turn this
Herzog.
off. Yeah, turn this off and never let nobody hear this and destroy it. It's like, I'm going to take his word on that. Like, if he's saying that, like, I think the bear mauling might be something you definitely don't want to happen if he's saying that.
Man, and Werner Herzog will just drop like the most traumatic story out of the blue and just be like, it's nothing. He'd be like, a child soldier held a gun up to my head and told me if I didn't sing whoop-de-loop, he would shoot me. And honestly, I just told him you're just a child. Anyways, what would you like to eat? And then he's like, destroys the footage. It's like, damn, that has to be bad. Like, it's like this guy's been through everything. It's like, it has to be pretty bad at that point. But anyways, with that, I hope that does give a little bit of a good aside there. And we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Wen10 quadruple 8, and he puts in a 10 and said, I'll take a drink every time that Lindsay says, well, I support, I won't do it. Lindsay says, well, I support a diplomatic solution, but take 2 drinks every time we win Iran. Cheers. LSA. P.S. You might start seeing orbs. It's normal.
I gotta say, like, that guy's a little something right there, you know, like, he just, like, honestly, like, it's like, I don't really take a lot of what the guy says to be what he really means, because he'll change it on a 180 depending on whatever the president says. Like, one day he'll be like, yes, let's go to war with Iran, and then like the next day after he'll be like, let's get peace. And it's like, come on, man. So you gotta pick one or the other and stick in a lane. Like, it's like, either we want peace or we want war with them. What do we want?
Man, a good friend once said, Lindsay's never met a war that he doesn't like. And honestly, I'd have to agree with 100% with that. Lindsay is definitely what most people would probably consider a war hawk to a large degree. So, you know, there's been a long line of war hawks in the government. But, you know, it seems like, especially when it comes to the Middle East, Lindsay's usually very gung-ho about doing stuff. Sometimes I can agree with it, and sometimes it's uncalled for. But, you know, you got to have discretion.
About everything.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little troublesome.
Yeah, he's gung-ho. He was gung-ho about Venezuela, and I think he's been saying some things about he's gung-ho with Cuba, and he's also been gung-ho for, like, honestly, like, there's some of them, though, like some of them are like, yeah, that makes sense, like, gung-ho for Ukraine and gung-ho for Iran, which, honestly, like, I'm not gung-ho for Iran, but it's necessary, and the war in Ukraine is a crucial one to see the Ukraine wins, but, like, the guy is just, like, basically, like, if there was a war to be had, he's for it. And that's very different than my viewpoint of it, because I think of war as a necessary extension if there's no other option. And so I wasn't really for the war with Venezuela or an upcoming war with Cuba, because I don't really think it has any strategic logic to it. And so they're wars to not be fought. But other ones are. And I just don't really get how some people are like, we cannot fight a single war at all, even if it is necessary. And then there's people like Lindsay who are like, every war must be fought, even if it isn't strategically necessary. And I don't really get either group. But with that, I hope that has addressed that well. And every time Matthew puts in that super chat number in the chat, I see that we're chipping away at him, but not quickly enough. But anyway, so that we are on to the next one.
We also have a $10 super chat from Hokey Redneck. He said, explain to the rest of the U.S. and the world what a Southern woman really means when she says, well, God bless you. Oh, I never really heard it that way. Usually and it wasn't being said at me, by the way, just make it clear, but it was like, oh, bless your soul. That usually means when they're about to walk away, they're about to be like, that stupid idiot. That's usually what that means after that's said right there. But Enforcer, what say you?
That's exactly what it means. It's the most two-faced thing that I've ever seen. Like, honestly, I respect the people from New York, because to be like, what are you, an idiot? And then they'll turn around and be like, what is that guy, an idiot? It's like, well, they just told you up front. But down in the South, they'd be like, oh, bless your little heart. And then once someone walks up, gee, that person is a stupid idiot. I hope they die early. You know, it's like, damn, it's like, why don't you just tell them that then, you know, if you're that filled with venom. But yeah, that's what it means. It basically means like honestly, like, it's like one of the most brutal things to say. It's like basically like F you and I hope you die kind of a statement for the larger part, because they go off after you walk away. But anyways, a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope that does address that well, Hokey. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Wan10 once again. He said, I'm not sure if you guys mentioned it, but did you guys hear that Ukraine offered to send their ships so they have docked in the UK to help open the strait? I didn't know they had their ships there. LSA.
Yeah, they actually did, and I believe there are some smaller corvettes and minesweepers, and they were given to Ukraine, but because of the whole situation with the war, they never were able to make it to Ukraine, so they've just been sitting there until the war is over, and then Ukraine will sail them on over to their home country. So, yeah, I actually did hear about that, and so far I haven't really heard about the U.S. responding to it. Zelensky actually kind of dissed on the United States today and said that the fact that a delegation hasn't passed by Ukraine lately from the U.S. is very disrespectful. So it appears that he's getting everything's turning 180 these days. Before long, Zelensky's gonna be going, "You don't have the cards. You're risking a world war." And then the president's gonna be, "I'm not here to play cards. I'm here to play checkers." and actually, it's chess, but it's really checkers. No, actually, it's mojang. You like mojang? But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Ivory, who said, how long does the USA have oil-wise with the strait closed and Europe eating at our oil as well before we run out?
Probably a few months, maybe 3, maybe 4. But I don't think we'll be able to see that things may stay the way they are right now for much longer than that. If consumption remains at full clip without any rationing whatsoever at any point in the future, we're probably going to see that our oil reserves dwindle heavily within the next 4 months. But a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Philip's Funhouse, and Philip said, 1501 days of Enforcer for me. It's been a long road getting from there to here. Looking forward to the next 1501. Slava LSA, baby.
Is that like a reference to Star Trek Enterprise? Like the main song, you know, it's been a long time getting from there to here. Man, I think it is. Like, I feel like that's a reference. But a big thanks to you for the support, Phillips Funhouse, and long live the Lee Spring Army, and thank you for having been around with us for basically the whole time. And so a huge thanks to you once again, and we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Soka, who said, tuning into the stream at night while laying down is slowly becoming a habit, and keep up the great work.
Oh, that's how we get people. We run so continuously and so regularly, it becomes a schedule for many. Be careful. You'll be here longer than you ever realized before you know it. But we're always happy to have you.
Sooner or later, they're going to classify those streams as class 4 narcotics. That's what they're going to do. They're going to say, sir, put it on the schedule, sir. It's on the schedule. It's got to be something. You got to lock them up. Lock them up. That's what they say, sir, when they jump on that stream. They said, you're listening to those they call them the enforcers, is what they call them. I don't know what they're enforcing, except they call them stupid enforcers. They're enforcing stupidity.
Man, I can already see. I mean, honestly, it's almost like a journalistic award these days to get dissed on in an individual tweet by the president. Maybe one day it'll happen. Like, look at these stupid idiots reporting the news. What a bunch of goofs. They ought to just be reporting whatever makes me sound good, depending on nothing. But anyways, a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. And I gotta say, we hope that you stick around. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Kyle Padell. He said, take a look at Beaver's Bend State Park in Oklahoma.
Wow, this is actually really pretty. I didn't expect this out of Oklahoma. I always thought that Oklahoma was like really flat and dry. But this is actually quite nice. Like, this is really nice, actually. You know, I say that, and we live in a state that actually is kind of like, you know, dry. Like, it's not flat, definitely, but it's very dry. But wow, what a nice place. Honestly, there's a lot of natural beauty here in this country, you know, really so. But a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Mr. Bone. He said, I've been starting to follow this channel about 2 weeks ago. I've been following nonstop since, and keep up the great info.
Hey, and welcome to the Lee Spring Army, and we're happy to have you join us. And so a big thanks to you once again, and with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Cassadar, who said, gents, much love. 2 notes. Winter on Fire is well worth the watch, and plus it's been a bit since I caught a live stream. LSA is SSG Airborne out.
And a big shout out to the Lee Spring Army Staff Sergeant in the Airborne. And also, I got to say, Winter on Fire has been recommended to us by so many folks. We have to eventually watch it. Maybe we'll have a movie night on Monday where we both watch it together. Or we'll watch it separately. That's probably what we did.
They're trying to traumatize me. I remember the last time I got recommended a movie. It was that one like 13 meters to, what was it, Andreevka or something? Was that it?
2,000 meters to Andreevka.
Yeah, 2,000 meters. That was a tough one. I tell you what, I still remember it. I still remember it right there. I'm still trying to forget about it.
It's kind of crazy because we actually covered all that stuff on the show, and then we go back and watch it from a different perspective. It's like, wow, it's quite sobering. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep running, and I hope that does address that well, Cassadar, and we will have to take a look at it. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
Someone said, "Watch the Dictator." Isn't that a parody though with Sacha Baron Cohen?
You are HIV Aladdin.
I don't think that's a documentary, my friend. I think that is I think that's satire. Although, with dictators, they are pretty stupid, so it could be a documentary depending on who you ask. But moving on to our next one here, this one goes to Praptor, who puts in a 5. And Praptor said, "Do you think green energy will become strategically essential through the conflict, even though the technology needs to greatly improve?"
To some extent, it kind of will, but I have a feeling that this is probably going to be pushing people towards the more energy-rich alternative that is green in a way, which would be nuclear power. I think that's probably where the direction's heading, because the photovoltaic cells, there really is no way to get them to the kind of efficiency that we would need. Like the technology, like it's there and it's eventually going to get there, but it's not going to be there today. So that would be a limiter for it. Wind power really isn't a reliable one either, and they need something that can ramp up and ramp down with the demands of the grid. And nuclear power can meet that in a high energy volume in a very small package for the amount of output that it makes. So I have a feeling that this might bring about a resurgence in interest and popularity of nuclear power as an alternative. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running, Praptor. And I think that there's going to be some people arguing for the renewable resource route, like you're saying, but I just think it's more so going to be leaning on nuclear, because nuclear would be a lot more reliable of an energy source. But a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Rebecca Fly, and they said, "I absolutely love you guys, but please revisit the info on the JCPOA." And Iran was complying until someone broke the agreement. And I would have to say, I think we're going to have to agree to disagree on this one, because I'm pretty sure that unless I have the story completely wrong in my head from memory, then I'm pretty sure that Iran was not disclosing all their nuclear sites, and that was a main problem that led to the deal falling apart. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I would generally have to agree with Enforcer Matt on that, because that's also how I remembered it as well. So a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Michigan-based Maniac. He said, the president wants a nuclear deal, not for the Strait to be open.
Well, we kind of need the Strait to be open at this point. So, we kind of have to achieve what we need. Like, if the president wants housing prices to be affordable in the country, then that doesn't mean it's okay for, an apple at the grocery store to cost $100 an apple, if you see what I'm saying. So I do thank you for the support, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Droof, who said, "If Iran's nuclear material is just dust since last year's actions, then what is left of the administration's aims and rationale for the war in LSA?"
That's what we've been saying.
I know that's the point I was making earlier. I was saying that as well. If it's true that it's not, being stored in containers where it's like secure and it's just simply scattered everywhere and it's just dust all over the ground, then what the hell are we worried about? They can't use dust that's mixed in with dirt to make nukes. They can't do that. So it blows the whole narrative apart, which is why it doesn't make any sense. But Enforcer, what say you?
That's exactly what we've been saying, and that's what doesn't make sense to me. I was pointing that out in the first week of the war. I was like, okay, so we're claiming that all of the nuclear material was destroyed back then, but we're going to war with them now because we need to destroy their nuclear program. And it's like, well, didn't they claim it was already destroyed? And it just doesn't make any sense. But a big thanks to you for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Our next one goes to Live Animal, who puts in a 5. It said, it looks like the USA extended the ceasefire indefinitely to make its blockade hurt Iran while having no reaction from them and to put them in a limbo.
But it puts us in a really bad lurch because we need the Middle Eastern oil, and there's just there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. We need that oil out of the Middle East. And so, there's really no five-dimensional chess play here. This is just raw stupidity from the administration at this point, and dog-headedness to act like the United States is invulnerable to damage. when in reality, like any nation on the planet, we're very susceptible to damage, especially economic damage, and the Iranians are inflicting quite a heavy bit on us right now, especially with what the oil industry and the oil supplies are looking like globally, and how bad this is going to go if this sort of goofy knick-knack paddywhack game keeps being played on the Hormuz right now. So I would say it'd just be a lot smarter and a lot straightforward to blow our way through it and clear it out. But you know, I'm only a lowly citizen, folks. I'm clearly not as great as our magnificent leader, who is definitely the first citizen and one above the rest. But a big thanks to you for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Spicy Guy. He said, I don't understand why ground fire was still active. The drones are finding their targets.
Yeah, like I don't get it either. And that was a funny clip to watch, I'll tell you. But a big thanks to you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Fred Vreeman. And Fred said, what the hell? Why is this chat still going? You guys need to go to bed.
Honestly, we do. Like, we do. But a huge thanks to you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Mats, who said if the Iranians had gone to the talks, then they might have been assassinated by the U.S. No, I don't think they would have done that. No, I don't think they would have done that. Like there are certain limits that they can and can't do. The U.S. can't try to get somebody at the negotiating table. If we did something like that, nobody would ever negotiate with the United States ever again in the history of the country. If they did something like that, that. Also, by the way, that would be very, very wrong to do that. Like even with the Iranians, that'd be very wrong to do that. You don't invite somebody to the negotiating table and then try to take them out. That's bad under any circumstance. But Enforcer, what say you?
Definitely not in Islamabad. That would be bombing sovereign Pakistani territory and their capital. That would definitely be something that we would never do. But a big thanks to you for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 5 from Mechtil, who said exercise in futility, trying to make sense of the nonsensical.
Yeah, we have to try our best, but yeah, it generally was. But a big thanks to you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And a big shout out to Plazoth and Jason Croft for each throwing in a 2. And thank you very much for that support, by the way, from the both of you, Plazoth and Jason. We also have a 2 from Lavelle Patton. He said, waste of time on a deal, boots on the ground coming.
And I would have to say, I would hope at this point that something happens rather than just pretending like deal making is so cool. Like, you know, I get that that's like the dude's whole shtick, his whole life is like that Art of the Deal book that he wrote. But can't we move on from that when that's clearly not working and do something else? Like, that's not the only thing that we can do. You know, we could militarily reopen the strait way easier at this point than trying to do the gymnastics required to even get the Iranians to sit down on the same table with us. But a big thanks to you for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 2 from K4005 who said playing 6-7D chess.
Clearly, the works of a genius. But a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Hoodoo, Texas, who said there's one man out there who specializes in creating chaos and then looking for opportunities in the chaos.
At this point, I wouldn't disagree with you, but a big thanks to you for your support, and we are on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Vicky Hirsch, who said it's Taco Tuesday. I didn't have tacos today, personally, not me. I had spaghetti.
Man, you had spaghetti?
Yeah, I cooked it up. I saw the sauce sitting in the closet or the pantry, and then I saw the noodles sitting in the pantry. I was like, let me cook that right up, and it's actually pretty solid.
Damn. I had a sandwich today. I had like a little chicken sandwich. It was pretty good. I enjoyed it. It was delicious, really. And you know, folks, it was really a blast. I enjoyed it. But anyway, so that we are on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Dago, who said, who needs thermal and night vision when you have vodka?
That's right. You can see double and triple vision, and then you can see all the drones up there, all 90 of them. But a big thanks to you for the support, and we are on to the next one.
And also a big shout out to Frank Trujillo and also Coca-Cola Mandate for each putting in a $2 support, and we appreciate the both of you very much for that support. We also have a 2 from Talon, who said, you've been in Utah long enough. BYU or U of Utah? I don't know. I've been by both of them. You know, I don't really know a whole bunch about them and stuff. I just been seeing a whole bunch of reels, like Instagram reels coming out of BYU that are kind of a little bit interesting. Interesting, kind of putting it mildly. So I'm not totally sure about either one of them. But Enforcer, what say you?
Well, Matthew, while we let the audience soak in the comments that you just made, I would have to say that generally, I don't really know. Like I'm not really I'm not a big football person, so sadly I just
Oh,
wouldn't.
they do football?
Yeah, they both do football.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, that's why these Utah University has this big old stadium, kind of like Bryant Denny Stadium, I believe it was called, at the University of Alabama. They have their own up here, and believe it or not, it's actually accessible directly by the red line on the track system. They actually pass right by it, as a matter of fact, to go to the university, and there's a stop right there too, so you can actually ride the tracks to a football game, which I never knew until we came here. But outside of that, let me go look at where in the world is Brigham Young, man? Is that like in Provo itself? Yeah, there it is. Do they have
Yeah.
Yeah, they do have their own right here. So yeah, they both do football.
Have you seen the cheerleaders for BYU?
No.
Yeah, I don't even know if you can show that on the air, but I mean, I saw something. I was like, bro, I was like, what in the world? I was like, isn't BYU like an all Mormon type thing?
Uh yeah. Let me what are you talking about? Let's see here. Let me go. Huh? Interesting. I'll have to look into this a little bit more.
Yeah, that's what I was like. That's what I'm saying. Not trying to be weird or something like that. You're making it sound like I'm trying to be weird or something. I'm just like, I'm mixed up with the whole Mormon thing, and then also the whole outfit situation. Like, I'm like,
well,
how does
that's
this
what I'm saying. I
work?
need
I'm
to
like,
look into this a little bit more because I'm like, I don't really think this falls within like their theology at this university per se, you know?
yeah. Also, people were saying, let's take a look. I don't know if we're going to take a look right now. I
No,
think you'll have to go
no.
take a look some other time. Like, I don't think we're going to do that right this minute.
Yeah, I don't think we can do that on air. I don't know if YouTube would like that. I mean, it's like, to be straight up with y'all, for cheerleading uniforms, they're pretty out there. Like damn, like, it's like, does that even like, I don't even really know where to go with that, but I generally didn't expect that. But honestly, I didn't expect that. Like, I just gotta be straight up. I mean, that's new. But anyways, with that, I hope that addresses that somewhat well. I really wouldn't know what I would want to pick. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Kanga, who puts in the five. Said, hi there, guys. What do you think about Poland? Economy, army, geopolitics, LSA? I think Poland has a pretty nice country. They keep their country very, very nice. And they don't put up with stupidity for the most part, which I do respect. Their economy seems to be pretty good. And the one thing that we know they are very good at is they have built up a very formidable military. And also, they don't back down. They don't take no shit off anybody. So I like Poland. But Enforcer, what say you?
I respect Poland. They have respect for themselves as a nation. They have a significant and formidable military. They have $1 trillion economy. They are working incredibly good on their own domestic economic policies, and their foreign policy is also very respectable, because while they are willing to treat allies with respect, they also will not take any crap off anybody. So a very well-rounded country in general. I have a humongous amount of respect for the Polish nation and the Polish people. And so a big thanks to you for the support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, folks, it is time for us to move on into our live chats. Unfortunately, folks, I hate to say it, but due to time constraints, because we are starting to get significantly over time, we will only be able to take the Morse code decoders and 3 live chats, and then we'll be rounding out the stream for the night. So, Matthew, what do we got?
And tonight for our Morse code decoders, we had Paul, Kevin, Mason, Joni, Norm, Arabelle, Heroy Fliffness, Kush, Kipteric, Siren, Brian. And they said the Morse code says, it looks like a ceasefire, aka war, is coming around the corner any day now, and LLT, LSA.
And that's the sound of money. Y'all hit the nail on the nail. Let's give it up for indefinite ceasefires. Yippee! It's a wonderful thing. We love them. And I gotta say, a huge shout out to the Morse code decoders and the Lee Springer and our Signal Corps for getting that correct, because y'all get that correct time and time again. It's always an incredible thing. And so with that, I hope that addresses that well. And we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Varig, who said, question for the enforcers. With 60 days rapidly approaching, how do you think the vote to either continue the war or abandon it will go? And I think they'll vote to continue the war. That's my hunch. The war may not be super popular. Like, I'm not saying it's not overwhelming negativity about the war, but it's not generally favorable toward the war with U.S. sentiment right now. So I think they'll vote to continue it out of pure necessity at this point. I think most people are going to realize we can't just simply end it. Like, if we do that, that could be worse than continuing it. So we're in deep. Might as well finish the job. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would agree. And so with that, we're on to the second to last question of the night.
This one goes to James. He said, what are the realistic chances of a coup happening in Iran?
The realistic chances, I think, are somewhat slim. It doesn't really appear that there's an atmosphere, from what we can tell on our side of reporting, for a coup, and so I would generally have to say the chances of a coup right now seem to be a little bit low. So I hope that does address that the best I can, and with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is going to be Justin, who said, "With the alleged weapons found on one of those Iranian ships, is this enough to cause to hold China responsible? And action is needed. And I appreciate the time."
And I would have to say generally yes, but that really depends on how the current administration is going to go about things. And I would tell you that they should be held accountable in some degree. At a minimum, we should cancel our upcoming visit to China for the president. But I have a feeling that's probably not going to be done, which I'm obviously not a big fan of, as many of y'all can hear. And I think that's a really bad sort of a message to send, is that we're totally fine with a country like China helping our enemies to kill our own citizens. Because I put my citizens, which I'm one of, above in highest priority compared to a foreign nation. So if a foreign nation is in any way assisting or aiding in the deaths of fellow citizens, I would personally not in good conscience go and take a visit to that country and treat them like their friends, because I consider the citizenry of the Republic to be a greater friend to me than any other foreign nation, especially in that regard. So I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, folks, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. And what a stream it has been. Over the course of almost 4 hours, we had a peak viewership of 22,000 people, and 150,000 people have watched this stream. I've got to thank you all so much once again for watching. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure to be able to cover this news for all of y'all tonight, and I hope y'all have enjoyed incredibly well. If y'all have, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We run live streams like this every single day of the week, except for Mondays at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And we also make short war videos whenever there's enough news. Very sorry for everyone that has been wanting a short war video. You haven't had one for the past 2 days, and sadly the news just hasn't been big enough to make one. Hopefully tomorrow that will change, and if it does, I will be the one making that short war video. So with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, Herom Slava. Long live the Lee Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, we will see you all tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern and maybe midday tomorrow on that short war video. And like the Enforcer said, a big shout out to the 150,000 plus people that were here by the end of the stream tonight. And we look forward to seeing you all tomorrow once again. And of course, Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava, get some rest and good night.
Bring on me,